pieces for town hall. I don't know how far it spreads, if it goes to police.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Planning Board meeting of June 11, 2014. Tonight in attendance, we have Rob Hoover, Bob Watts, Tilly Evangelista, myself, I'm Harry Locatilia. We have our town planner, Howard Snyder, and Wendy Beaumont as the administrative assistant. Being that it's 7:12, we'll call the meeting to order, and hopefully we'll hear a motion for the minutes.
I move we accept the minutes of May 28th, 2014, pending discussion.
Motion is made to accept the minutes of May 28, 2014, as presented.
So moved. Second.
Seconded by Bob Hoover. Rob Hoover. Discussion.
Happy guy.
We received a few comments, and those have all been integrated. There are typos, so there wasn't anything having to do with content or discussion.
Good, Rob? Good, Tilly?
I'm going to abstain, so I was here.
All in favor of approving the minutes of May 28th, 2014, say aye.
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 All opposed? All abstentions?
One. Me.
So, motion carries 3-0 to 1. Thank you. Do we want to do some vouchers?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept and pay the vouchers to the tune of $227.22, including $128.84 to WB Mason for office supplies, $70.63 to Minuteman Press for stationery, and $27.75 to Schwab for a new stamp.
So, Bob makes a motion for the vouchers to a total of $227.22. Is there a second for that?
Second.
Rob seconds. Discussion?
So what kind of stamp did you get?
It says file copy, so it saves us
Sure.
a little bit of time.
Yep.
I want to know how high is the high velocity on the fan?
After $100,000 of CPC money for the air conditioning?
We
That
need
shouldn't
something
have
to
to be that high.
circulate it.
Will it levitate off the ground? No, no.
Our drone fan.
Yeah, right.
All in favor of approving the vouchers totaling $227.22.
Aye.
Say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries unanimously 4-0. Great. Howard, would you walk us through the correspondence, please?
We have two items. It was actually a pretty easy week with correspondence for the board. A special permit for a two-car garage from the town of Boxford ZBA. That's not of any concern for the planning board in Georgetown. And we received an email correspondence from the attorney that handled the Harris Way subdivision, and we can bring that up under new business.
Well, maybe we can deal with that now.
We can take care of two items under new business.
Just curious, so why does Boxford send that to us if it's not,
Cursory, just courtesy notice. And
is it an abutting issue to us?
whenever the planning board or zoning board in Georgetown has a new application, we send it out to adjoining towns. So they can let us know if there's any interest that they have.
Regardless of where it falls in the town?
Right, and usually
Got it.
it's,
Just curious.
for Newbury, quite often we get items going on in Palm Island.
Got it.
Every once in a while, I think a year ago, we had something from Newbury that had impact that could happen for our shared wellhead area, so that was just something we watched.
Something to do with that chapter 40 or 41 or something, right?
Yeah.
Who can keep track?
Yeah.
So we want to deal with the tree bond issue at Harris Way while we're waiting for full board?
Well, Harris Way, also known as Emma Harris Way, was a subdivision, and I believe they just completed their last custom build. The street has been accepted by the town a while ago, but there was a bond that the planning board requested put in place for installation of street trees in case any of them were damaged during the construction activities. And with the last house being built, they're requesting that that bond be returned. It's for a little over $5,500. I had hoped to have the whole M account release here, but we were waiting to get back the final end of month balance from the accounting office, and we don't have that. And I also want to go out and just do a final site inspection, because the house closing was delayed, but it just happened, so.
Is that you to do the site inspection, or is that the, whoever did the review of the?
Well, usually it's a site inspecting engineer that does things for the
Right.
roadway, but with the street tree being unique,
So you're taking.
I thought I would just go out and take a look and see how everything else was functioning. And we usually hold on to money for a year after street closures anyhow.
Yep.
For the street, and the agreement, as I understand it, was that we would just hold the bond money until the last house was built, so.
We no longer have an M account for that, right?
For the street trees, we do, but not for the street itself.
Not for the street itself or for the review or to pay
Site inspection
inspecting
of the street.
engineer.
He already got his money back, I believe, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I remember that.
So,
He was
Next
really a
meeting.
very good, excuse me, a very good developer to work with.
Great.
Very cooperative. It was outstanding.
Keep in mind, when we first initiated the in lieu payment program for the affordable housing component, he was under no obligation to go with it, but he voluntarily did it.
Nice. Nice.
And that's
Yeah,
all
the
set
tr-
now,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, the last house,
Last house
trust
was sold,
received some
trust received.
funds and
What did they get? Like
Yeah,
28 grand, 30 grand?
yeah.
Yeah.
Just hand wrote out the check.
Yeah. He was very, very good about it.
And
is-
we've taken care of the Mullins forms too.
Mhm, taking care of them all as well. Well,
I spoke to the owner and applicant for 161 West Main Street, and he said he would be here at 8:45.
well, why don't we take a little break, since there's no other business that we can conduct without,
Tim,
Tim?
Oh,
Without a full
what's his
board?
name, yeah.
Without a full board. I was gonna use his name, I was gonna use a full board.
if we have to
All in
wait for
favor of
Tim.
taking a 5-minute break?
Sure.
Well,
We'll take-
before you go, you could, well, no, I guess it's the Form H you have to do during the public hearing. All right, never mind.
We'll take a 5-minute break. We'll be back
Hey,
soon.
Wendy,
Yeah.
where did you get this image?
We'll take a 5-minute break.
Oh, is this? Do you remember Teletubbies?
It's just
Hi, everybody, we're back from a
That's
5-minute
the-
recess.
the-
We're now at a full board.
verification.
Wendy, if you'd be kind enough to let the record show that Tim Howard has arrived. What
Usually
we're gonna
you
do
get
now is
a paper
open the
like I see
continuation of the
there
public
with all the
hearing
numbers on it.
for Turning Leaf subdivision.
No?
If the applicants would be kind enough to join us, be most appreciated, especially if you state your name for the record, your names.
Good evening, Jill Mann here on behalf of Turning Leaf. Here with me is Rich Williams from Williams and Sprague, the site design engineer. Last time we appeared was on May 28th, and at that hearing, the board kindly agreed to extend to its next meeting, which was this evening. Part of that request also entailed the delivery of a Form H that would extend the time period for the board, and I have a copy of that. Thank you, Wendy.
Motion to accept the,
So moved.
motion by Bob to accept the Form H, seconded by Tim. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That Form H will grant time for the board and applicant to continue their review and process that application until the end of September.
Absolutely. Motion
Okay.
carries.
Is that the date?
Tilly, that was an affirmative, right?
Yes. The
Motion
date
carries
that's here goes.
4-0 with one abstention.
Remember, I missed it up.
Please continue, sorry about
Okay.
that.
That's fine.
Just process, you know how that goes.
We understand. At the last meeting also, it was requested by both Mr. Locatilia as well as Mr. Hoover that we deliver to you that list of issues that would remain, so it's just a little bit more of a concise format, so that you have one document to which to refer, instead of having to look at a whole bunch of different documents. In addition to that, we did provide that to you as well as a list of the waivers and mitigation measures being proposed. I did update that list of summary issues because we did receive from Mr. Graham his final comments, and with regard to that, what I had done was I updated the summary list to include Mr. Graham's comments as well as on the list of waivers, because he does comment on all the waivers and what his position was relative to his recommendations there too. So, I had asked Mr. Snyder to email that to you because there was an update from the time when I had sent it to you a week ago. And essentially, if you take a look at those remaining issues, what I had done was I identified the issues that were raised by the board. For example, the street lighting plan, I believe, Mr. Locatilia, you wanted to ensure that we didn't have conflict between the trees and the lights. And what we did, is just refer to the plans, and we actually did locate them on center in between.
I think that was Rob brought that
Oh, it
up.
was, I'm sorry. And then I know that Mr. Hoover actually asked about the type of trees, the size, and we did place something on the plans detailing the types of trees. And as Rich had indicated before, it is better for the subdivision to have a varied species, so we did provide that list, and that was included in the plan set.
Did that end up like page 21 or something?
It was on page 17.
Page 17?
Yep.
There was a detail on the tree planting detail. We added the 5 species that we recommended to the plan.
In addition to that, we did include in our responses that we would provide for a 1-year warranty on those trees, and that to the extent something died or was diseased, we would replace it with something of equal kind, species as well as size. Also, there was a lot of discussion with regard to that right-of-way and the parking area, and if you'll note on the plans, we did expand that parking area so that it was sufficient for the town at any point in time to create handicap parking as well as ramps. One of Mr. Graham's comments was that the handicap ramps were not properly designed, but in fact, they weren't designed at all, and there just happened to be a leftover reference on the plan accidentally, because what we had discussed at that last meeting was not providing for the ramps, but in fact having the sidewalk go behind the parking, and that's what happened, and it's just an omission, and that's being taken off of the plan, that reference. We also were asked to address the issue as far as a buffer for between lot 1 and 16 Lisa Lane. I believe that was the Gross Lines property. And in fact, we did, and you can see that on sheet 12, we provided for that. I know you saw most of this, I would think. And then also we were asked to, and this was one of the issues with regard to how we were going to improve site distance for the benefit of the town. that was otherwise not connected directly with the subdivision. And that's what we had done, and you had asked for a plan, and we did include the plan. Mr. Graham actually asked us to include it in the plan sheet, so we will designate that as Plan Sheet 21.
It's 21.
Yeah, that was the 20, there you go, and that will be done. In addition to that, we did have the whole questions with regard to the inclusionary housing component, and as I said, you know, we would love to make the payment in lieu, and that's something the board, I would think, needs to discuss and come to terms with, what they would like to see. And, we're more than willing to work with this commission and committee as well as the, task force and trust. As far as Mr. Graham's comments, really, they were, the final list of comments, they were very minor and required, it's almost like more non-substantive changes. For example, he wanted us to dimension on all sheets the no cut, no disturb area that was 10 feet. There are only some sheets that show 10, so we're just making it on all sheets, but it is on the plan. We'll just document it on all the sheets, that's what he asked.
It's on one of the plans.
Oh, it is
but
on
it's-
one, yeah, of course,
But
yes.
it's not, and that's the one that, he's referring to the one at Grossman?
Gross line, yeah.
Gross line, yeah.
Grossline, excuse me.
Yeah. And then also, instead of using, the Cape Cod berm for that parking area that we created, he wants us to use the granite. And we're fine with that, and we will do that, and we demonstrated that. And again, I just referred to the handicap ramp. As far as, I actually referred to the waiver because in his comments, he asked us to make a change to the plan. Because we're asking for a waiver with regard to the offset, because now there's a part of the plan, we're actually asking you not to have the street run in the center of the right-of-way like it normally is, but to actually push it over a bit to get it
So
away
Searle
from the
Street?
wetland. Yeah, yes, well, this is the entrance off of Searle. He just didn't like the fact that we had a reference, that actually carried out to the decimal points of .36, .7, and asked us to change it, so we'll do that. That's just a plan comment, it's not an issue, Rich said.
That's a biggie, right?
Yeah.
Everybody good with that?
And then as far as waiver number 10, that waiver is when we ask for, to be permitted to not have 3 feet of cover. He just wanted us to actually change the plans to put a note on it that says when you're actually, under construction, before bituminous is placed, that you just maintain 3 feet of cover.
Yeah, so I can explain that.
Yeah, there you go.
I spoke to him and his concern was that someone was gonna put the pipe down and they were gonna drive over the pipe and crush the pipe. So I said, well, I'll put a note on the plan that says either, we put the pipe in and backfill it with 3 feet of material, or we provide a class 5 concrete pipe. So, but it's a very easy thing to accomplish to put it in and provide 3 feet of material over it, so that people aren't driving over it.
You wanna use the high density
HDPE, right.
And so that,
I mean, that,
street plate too.
Which is better,
uh,
I mean, long-lasting and durable.
HDPE lasts a long time. In the ground, it'll last longer than concrete.
so that basically presented a complete summary of the issues that were been raised by the board at the previous meeting, as well as those comments raised by Mr. Graham. I don't know if the board, and as I said, I proposed all of the responses necessary and the minor revisions that would be needed, basically just notations on the plan or site changes. In addition to that, we did provide the list of the waivers, and as I said, we did comment or place on this list just what Larry's responses were, so that you can easily reference, and it was set forth in his letter of, I have to actually look, his letter of June 10th.
The 10th,
Pardon me?
the 10th.
Yes, yes, I'm sorry, yes. And it was my understanding too that the board had actually wanted to begin discussions of the waivers, but out of respect for the fact that Mrs. Evangelista hadn't been able to be present at that meeting, Mr. Locatilia asked for there to be a continuance until this evening so that you could participate fully in the discussion. And so I don't know if the board wants to begin on that, or if you, I guess I defer to Mr. Locatilia at this point.
We've already done the sign off.
Yeah, okay. I would just like to clear up and go back to the affordable housing provision. That I'd like it in place before we vote for our subdivision, because I really think that, you know, everything in our inclusionary bylaw says early, get it in early. And then when I saw you had a meeting the 18th and the 19th, I'm a little concerned about that. If you want us to move along, as I've been getting the impression you do, that has to be finalized. Something has to be more substantial than, I'm gonna meet with them and we're gonna work it out. This town has gotten burnt many times on developers, and we don't get that affordable housing provision as the bylaw indicates and as the town people want it. So please get that in before we,
Oh, we've had 2 meetings already, it's just that there was some conflict with regard to who's really has the discretion, but we are absolutely, I mean, we are trying. The one thing that we would ask to do is, it is just self-evident that it is very, very difficult, if not nearly impossible right now, for people in that income range to actually acquire and finance a home, individual home. It's near impossible. I've done a number of them, nobody can qualify, we end up keeping them on the market 2 years, sometimes even longer. It's very difficult to get them sold, and what ends up happening many, many times is when they go for a repeat sale, they have to buy out because they can't find anybody to take the home. One of the best ways to actually satisfy that is to provide for town-owned housing that is rentable. We understand that we don't have a plan in place to provide for that because that's a long process.
oh, excuse me, can I stop you a minute?
Of course you may.
Rental housing is not part of our bylaw.
No, that's,
You've only got 3
affordable.
options.
But my point, if you let me, I understand what your options are without a doubt. The options are to provide for a payment in lieu. The options are to actually provide for affordable housing. But the goal is to actually give people housing, to make sure that it remains on your, if you will,
SHI.
status.
SHI list, yeah.
And it's unfortunately very difficult to do that because of the way the banks function nowadays and because of what the requirements are. The requirements are somewhere around $80,000 of assets maximum. And then, income of no more than, it depends on how many children you may have going in, 54,000 up to, I don't even think it's $70,000. And it's very difficult then to qualify for a home because it's expensive to own a home because you have to upkeep it, you have to pay the taxes, it's burdensome. So my point is most certainly not to skirt this particular bylaw. My point is to provide and to have this board say, okay, look, why don't we have you make a payment in lieu equal to the cost for the 4 homes? And then Mr. O'Connell has already been before the board and said, look, I'm more than willing to work with you to try and help and do something with the money. Let's try and have the best benefit for you. And when we had appeared before the Housing Trust, I think I had informed the other board, so I'm just gonna direct this to you. When we had appeared before the Housing Trust previously, we were trying to think of something that would satisfy not only your housing master plan and what the real goal was, but what was going to provide this town with the greatest benefit. And one of the members, and I always do this, I forget his name.
Paul Nelson.
Thank you very much. Mr. Nelson had said, look, in fact, the best bang for our buck is if you could potentially do something to expand our affordable rental housing market, because they remain part of your quota. They don't transfer. There's not a risk.
And that need was a high priority in the housing production plan.
Oh, it was your top
which
priority.
A year and a half ago.
Because that's where you have all your demand and all your weight, Yeah.
Well, as I understand it, and I just explained it to you before, the bylaw explicitly says 3 options.
Right.
Rental is not there, but if you want to come through with the money, then I would recommend that you do that, and you will have to pass it to, if the board agrees to that, you'd have to pass it to the trust,
Sure.
and then they would make up whatever plan they want.
And that's what we had intended to do, because we understand that this board needs to actually put in place a requirement on the developer that's enforceable. So we understand that you want to do it within the 4 corners of your regulation. That's why I said, my point was more, we give you the money, and then we agree, though, to continue to work. We're not trying to not work with the trust or with the task force, whichever. I think those 2 boards need to decide who we're supposed to work with, but one of the 2. And
The task force is when you're
is
supposed
it,
to.
I don't know.
The task force.
We have a meeting with each of them. So I guess, but you are 100% correct. We are absolutely 100% committed to giving the money. We're not trying to not do that and do something else. We're saying, we'll give you the money, and then we're gonna work with the task force in the trust to see if there's a way we can help with that money.
Great, that sounds very good.
Have you got an amount of money figured out, what it would be?
It is actually, it's an odd formula. The way it works is,
Inclusionary housing bylaw.
yeah.
I asked Howard if he'd be kind enough to print that up so that if we had any questions.
You pay a percentage of each
Probably on a
home,
PDF we can show
the
on
value of
screen,
each
right?
home. It's almost, you know how I like to say it, it's almost like
Well,
you
if we
pay
need to, if we
a
need
commission every time you sell a home towards the housing fund. So every time you build a home, it's what, 4%?
Of the calculations about.
Yeah.
No, it's not waiting until you build a home. It's what your development is approved for.
That's the total cost. but
We're not required to wait until you build a home.
That's what it says.
No, we are.
You are,
We are?
that's what it says.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does it say,
But you're responsible though for that amount. It's like a note. So the second you get your approvals, there's an obligation to pay X. It's just when you pay it is with each transfer of the home. But you're right. I mean, you are obligated day one to pay that amount. I don't mean to not say that, but the payment terms are stretched like a note.
all right, now,
I think a lot of this conversation is gonna be resolved after your meeting with the trust on Wednesday and the task force on Thursday.
Next week.
About what their goals and expectations are, and how you're gonna fulfill the bylaw as well as their expectations.
Right.
And then you'll be able to report back to the board.
Right, and that's why I kind of think it would be great if the board would say to us, yes, you know what, then we would love for you to make the payment in lieu. We don't, the requirement to build on site maybe is not as practical and is not gonna be as effective as would be a payment in lieu, and then working with those two boards to create a better solution for this town. And honestly, I think too that maybe it isn't an option for all developers, but I think this board's very, very familiar with Mr. O'Connell and the fact that he's committed to the town, he's been in the town, he's done a lot for the town, and this project will take him a bit of time to complete, and I think he'll be here, you know, for beyond this one subdivision, and I think he has credibility and has earned that with this board.
where does it say that when they build them? I'm trying to,
When you sell them, actually,
Yes, it's on.
when you sell them?
because it's the purchase price, you get, if we sell them for
Purchase
more money,
price, but not,
if we sell them for more money, you get more money. That's kind of why I think they do that as well, to not leave any money on the table, so to speak.
Right, they pay prior to the issuance of an occupancy.
what page are you
permit.
looking at there, Tim?
It's the last page that was stapled up
Yeah,
against
find it,
this. Page 5 of 6.
I didn't bring my bylaw.
Bottom of
look at
that
it.
page on H, well, I,
didn't bring my
B,
zoning
housing
bylaws.
contribution payments.
Jill, just an overview, how many new units are being proposed with Turning?
Well, we're 22 homes.
22 new homes.
It got, oh yeah, and I don't know if Mrs. Evangelista realized that too. Did we, you read you
22.
saw, we reduced to 22. You had the issue with regard to the non-traditionally shaped lots. We actually changed that and we reduced to 22 homes from the 24.
Right.
But yeah, so we have 22 homes and they range, some are 3 bedrooms, some are 4 bedroom.
And so with the inclusionary housing bylaw from a higher level, your expectation of meeting the bylaw is 2 full units, and since it's a fractional, the fractional would be done in a cash payment anyway.
Exactly.
That point two would be the in lieu portion. If this board were to decide that they need to build the units on site,
I don't think we should even go down that road. It should be the Affordable Housing Task Force, that's what they're tasked with doing.
it sounds like you're in favor of the in lieu payment. I mean, it's a relatively binary choice here that I see before the board.
Well, they might say they wanna do it in a unit in the subdivision, whatever they want. I don't,
Are you,
I don't
you're
think-
saying that we shouldn't, the planning board shouldn't rule on it?
I don't, personally, no, I don't think we should. That's not our task.
It's our mission, it's our charge under the bylaw to make
Right,
that
but it's
decision.
really, we
I
have the
understand you're
Affordable
in
Housing
favor of
Task Force.
Waiting until you hear what the task force would like to
Right.
do.
Right.
Okay, sounds
Yes, I
like,
would like to wait. Well, I think the bylaw says with recommendations from them, but it doesn't mean that we have to follow whatever they
No,
recommend.
we don't have to, but I
Yeah.
probably would. I mean,
Yeah.
That's what they do, that's what they're,
Yeah. So that's-
Howard, you're
they know what the
I'm
needs
an agent
are.
for the trust. and-
You're the agent for the trust, do you know which way they're leaning, or
No, I don't.
after 2 meetings, they're still up in the
Well,
air?
the 2 meetings were spread out from the early genesis of the project to very recent. And the third meeting with the trust will be on Wednesday, just to understand the policy, and then the task force is really gonna get involved the following day. It was my interpretation that the task force was written into the bylaw because the trust wasn't in place at the time.
Mhm.
And then later on, I told the applicant to meet and work with the trust. And now the task force is saying, no, we're the ones you need to meet with. So that's the reason why there's 2 meetings next week. And out of that, I hope there's clarification of what this board can consider for the bylaw.
Right, I'd like to hear what they want.
Right. What their preference will be.
Yeah.
So.
Because how do we know? That's what they're charged with
Right.
doing. We don't know.
And they're anticipating and very much looking forward to next week's meeting, so.
So good.
So it could end up being some kind of a combination between on-site and an in lieu?
It
I
could be
mean, the
variable.
in lieu is, the in lieu
The,
is.
the in lieu of is gonna be the fractional payment
Is
anyhow,
at
'cause
least the
it's
fractional
less than
payment.
the
Right.
point
Yeah,
four.
0.2.
Right.
So, but then the task force is gonna be charged with saying, our preference is possibly both off-site, one on-site, both on-site, or all for cash, and that's gonna be worked out, so.
Right, and they're gonna be privy to knowing what the difficulty is in selling a unit like that, like Ms.
Yes,
McCann
they are.
says, is that it's.
Cause they've recently
They
gone
deal
through it
with
with
that all the
existing
time.
ones in town already.
Right, so maybe they've been through a couple of 2 or 3 year nightmare situations.
Right.
And if they haven't, then it's up to her to convince them or not.
Did you come up with a number for if you went all the way with money? Did you come up with a number?
It depends what the units
I don't
sell
know,
for.
because I don't know what the fair market value is of the units. So I wouldn't, I mean, I could only estimate, I don't.
I think the trust and the applicant are almost there to establish.
What the price, well, your developer doesn't know what he's gonna sell the houses for?
I mean, you
Oh,
haven't,
it's 4%, right?
it's 4% of what the fair market value is,
So
whatever you
it's-
generate.
I
Probably
mean,
in
you
the
have-
$570,000 range.
So it's like $25,000 a home.
Yeah, that's what that house on North Street sold for, and that
Yeah.
was a 4-bedroom,
Right.
and that wasn't even in a subdivision.
That's, I mean, that's.
Subdivision has additional value.
Harris
Oh,
Wade.
really?
Yeah, people like subdivisions, cause it's a neighborhood full of kids and.
Some people.
Harris Wade came
So,
up
I
with
know.
28,000, right? It was 28,000.
Right, but this is the it's not black and white with this calculation, because
Oh, absolutely
with
not.
what was negotiated with
Yeah.
Harris Way, 4%, with, the houses may have originally been charged at being sold at 500, but now he's building custom homes and he's selling them at 750.
Right.
So the contribution goes up.
Right, and with the Harris Way, it was a side agreement. We actually, even if they sold a lot, we set the value at 525 as a minimum, as per the agreement. Remember, that was an agreement, it was totally a side
Right.
agreement that was done, a contract basis. So even if he wanted to sell the lots to someone else after, that was all, it's moved, never mind. I shouldn't have even brought it up. It sounds like there's no appetite to make any kind of decision with respect to the affordable housing today.
No, because
about
they're
the
not
waivers?
ready for it.
Right, because we don't have information from the trust
Yeah,
and
we
or
do- we need that
the task
information.
force.
Yeah.
Is there an appetite to vote the waivers?
I believe you're ready to vote on the waivers tonight, because you've got a recent report from the technical review engineer. And I believe that the design of the definitive plan is solidified enough that there won't be any modifications that would create or remove a waiver.
And we're looking at on the big sheet, right? On the big sheet, we're looking at,
Jill, the sheet that you sent out,
The big one behind.
the sheet that you sent out that the board has in front of them is the
Yes.
same waivers requested, there's 1 through 10, as
Yes.
what's on the plan, so.
It's identical, I made it so that they flowed in order. Because originally, remember, I had one that we said, well, is it really a waiver, and I pulled it out, remember I had it in the footnote, Howard? And I just put it back into it for all the right order, so it wouldn't get confusing, because of the way Larry referred to stuff.
excellent. But number 4 is corrected for the length of road, right?
Yes, it
No
is.
longer 1,000 feet.
United States.
Right, okay. Well,
I was just
Suggestion?
I'd like to suggest that the board takes one at a time, and.
I'm all for that.
I'm not sure how you wanna word it, but, now I can't vote on these, but would like to have an opportunity to offer comment on these.
Then why don't we do it
So,
in
should do
a
one at a
strict,
time.
simple way that someone makes a motion for the first waiver? There's a second. We have board discussion, which you can participate in. And, well, and you can vote too. You just have to abstain. But you get to vote.
I move that the board approves the first waiver.
Want to cite
I will
it?
read it.
Want to cite just the citation?
Section 365.34.C7 and section 365-62, which requires standard highway bounds shown at all intersections of streets with each other, at all points of change direction of curvature streets, and at all other planned boundaries, and in place thereof allow bounds to be set on proposed roadway only as shown on the plans. Applicant proposes to gift to the town a 14-point.
Hold off. You got a good motion there.
Good start?
You got a
All
good
right.
motion
All right.
there.
Just stick to the
And
waiver.
Wendy, you good with that? Okay, I saw your fingers
Yeah, you'll
almost
get it
burst
from
into
the phone.
flame there. Is there his motion's been made.
Second.
I hope you heard it. Tim seconds it. We good with that?
I have copies.
Great. Tilly, we'll start the discussion.
I'd like to know why, because I kind of like the bounds. There's something that will last infinity. How are these owners going to know where the end of the streets are, where their boundaries are?
I can answer the question. We're setting iron pipes, not highway bounds. And in the last 10 or so subdivisions that I've seen in the town, no one has done highway bounds except at the street. But there are markers that are gonna be set so people know where their property lines are.
And a highway bound would be a 4x4 by 6 foot long granite post.
That's
with-
correct.
With something carved.
They're actually
into them.
6 by 6, they're huge,
And what do
They're
you use? What do you
iron
use?
pipes.
Iron pipe.
which is a standard survey marker.
To Tilly's original question, why do you want the waiver?
Because it's not necessary overkill, and some of them you're not gonna be able to place anyways, even if you said do it, because they're in the middle of a swamp or a wetland.
So, just so I understand, the reason why you want a waiver is because you're of the opinion that they're not necessary. I just wanna make sure I'm
That's
understanding.
what, yeah, correct.
Okay.
Well, that degree of a bound is not necessary, and in certain locations it isn't, in
Right,
that,
I understand,
yeah.
I understand.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, just because Tilly had asked, that was the basic question I wanted to ask, was why, and, I don't know about the 10 other subdivisions, but, Tilly's absolutely correct, that those are the way that you mark, that stays there for, I don't know if forever is the proper term, but, inevitably, the posts, the iron posts and the pins, they come out. I don't have strong feelings one way or the other on this one. I don't have strong feelings one way or the other on this one. I'm not sure I agree with that they're not necessary. But I think the question why was important to ask and to hear the answer.
Well, if I can just expand on that, once the street bounds are in, any surveyor can come in and survey the lot.
Oh, for sure.
So they're not necessary.
Yeah,
That's-
well, no, that's not true, because then what happens is if you're a homeowner and your lot lines happen to fall on a curve where you don't have bounds and you have iron pins and the pins come out, which inevitably they do, as a homeowner, you're gonna have to go and pay a surveyor ahead of time
Can I
to figure your
interrupt?
property lines. So, they are necessary.
Can I just interject? And I was gonna go to Tim to find out.
But I don't wanna make a big deal of it. I'm saying I don't have strong feelings about it.
I do have strong feelings. I have strong feelings about the fact that we're incorporating in this one waiver in our regulations, and I would love to see this change this summer when we review our regulations. The fact that we're talking about highway bounds and lot bounds between the homeowners. I don't have any great problem waiving the idea of waiving a highway bound. I do have a problem that two people live next door to one another on relatively large-sized lots and have absolutely no idea where that border is. I always like the idea that the lot lines are marked, demarcated.
So you actually like just the opposite in that regard.
I like the homeowners to know where
you
their
like the-
lot is.
You like those ones to be in
Because
versus the
then
town.
they don't need to hire, oh yeah, the town can figure it out. I mean,
Well-
we've got surveyors.
Yeah, but
We're
you
paying
shouldn't.
anyway.
Yeah, but you should.
They're paying it, and our
I didn't think you
inspector
were.
is.
I didn't think you were going to go that way with
Oh,
that,
that's
but
what I don't
since-
like about this
Well-
waiver.
Well, that's
Yeah.
sort of what I was suggesting. But the town, you don't want to pay the town doesn't want to have to pay a survey to go out and do something twice. It costs more money to do that. So I would suggest that when we do discuss this, if this waiver is granted or not granted, but in that discussion later on during the summer, whatever,
Hopefully.
that we either grant this as a waiver or not in the future, kind of thing. We have this discussion we're having right now.
This goes back to
Yeah, yeah.
2007, we
Yeah.
had this discussion
Yeah.
about this one. And I'm always losing on it, I always vote it down. But that's the problem I have with it.
I would
I'm not so concerned about
I would
the highway
support you.
part of it.
What did we use at Stone Row Extension?
It was bounds. It was lot bounds.
Yeah.
We broke out the waiver, and if I recall, what we did was, we granted the waiver with a condition. And the condition was that the certain ones shown on the plan would be put in. And we ensured that on the plan that the bounds between the houses were the ones that were shown on the plan and enumerated on the plan.
I
The
think-
problem was that there's a great deal of difference between a 3-lot subdivision and a 22-lot subdivision.
But you still have that confusion of property lines, whether it's 3 or 30.
No, the confusion was that, I remember what you're talking about. You're talking about the conflict after?
Yeah,
The conflict was that unfortunately the engineer designed it and drew it, and Larry never picked up on it.
The underground
That the
utilities
bound
were-
was right where the underground utilities got installed. And I think we ascertained that the problem was lack of installation control when those utilities went in.
Right, but we weren't asking them to put in 6x6 bounds.
No, 4 by just lot bounds in between the houses, just so that two neighbors that are on good speaking terms could reasonably go out to wouldn't have to go hire a surveyor for $5,000. They could go to the store and get a $3 ball of string and stretch it between the two bounds and say, now we know where our property line is.
Well, and Harry, I mean, I don't think this waiver is, in terms of going backwards, I'm really quite sensitive to all the time you guys have been in front of the board and how long these waivers have been on these drawings and how much work you've put into these drawings, and I'm uncomfortable with going backwards at this point in time, and I respect that. With that being said, I don't see whether they're bounds or not bounds going backwards in terms of drawing revisions and that sort of thing of a major piece of work. But this is where the board gets into trouble, I think, when every time a subdivision comes in, when you take this and you say, well, yes, you can grant a waiver on it, it leads to all the different subdivisions being done, and it opens up this can of worms for every time when you know, if you just say this waiver, we typically don't grant, we're not gonna grant at this time for projects, and you just stick to that. Your point to the private homeowners in the bounds, I agree with. I think the town lot line locations and where the radiuses begin and those sorts of things, I think those are just as important. Elm Street coming up, the work on Elm Street is a perfect example. Half of those aren't in.
Oh, yeah.
And so they're gonna have to, but they're not gonna resurvey it. They're just taking and making assumptions based on recorded plans. Well, that's another whole discussion, but, so I would say that it's just as important, Harry, to have the town ones in. So I think the argument is that the bounds matter. I think they do, and I think a permanent bound is, you know, the right way to go. But the reason I said I don't have strong feelings about it is because of, you know, all the work that's been done on this thing and going backwards, and I can live with
An
that one
interesting
not
point to bring up is the fact that this street is not to be a private street. This is going to be, we
Public.
have every intention of making this a publicly accepted roadway.
so.
Yeah, and we,
Convinced me.
and
You've convinced me.
we're not asking to not put the street bounds in. In fact, I think,
You have those, don't you?
yeah, absolutely, and I don't think it's a good idea to omit those, because those are the starting point for the surveys, when people survey their lots, and with iron pipes, I disagree with you, they last a very long time. I've been surveying for 25 years, and we go out and find iron pipes that were set back in the 40s, so they do last.
They do last, no question
And
about
Well,
it.
and if you have a
Question
good
about it.
front
They do
bound,
last.
and you know the angle.
Correct.
I mean, it's not $5,000 to resurvey that.
Well, it,
You
No,
just
these
shoot
these
lot
days
lines
it's
of a few
these days
hundred
it's much
bucks.
easier than it used to be.
Right,
But- but
if
with-
you-
but-
I just redid I have a house in West Newbury, and it had all antique old iron pipes, and they found every one of them.
You
And
know,
that was 200-year-old house. Now, who knows when the bounds were put in? They were probably put in the
Well,
early 1900s.
there's a development right in town that I'm well aware of, that each one had to go, and each homeowner had to go and get it surveyed. And they found later on that what they had thought was theirs wasn't, and they had to move over like 5 feet. I mean, that's a substantial thing. I mean, they had sheds, they had fences. There was a big issue, and this was an old development, so obviously, they probably had the pipes there. They're gone.
Well,
How does
that
that-
happens whether or not there's bounds or pipes. People put their stuff where it's not there, so
I'd like to
it's
hear.
not, that's not,
Well,
From
it
the-
became an issue for everybody to go and get it surveyed. And at the time that I remember, it was $2,500.
It only cost me $900 to
Really?
completely resurvey the house in West Newbury.
Yeah.
It's not as expensive with, they have GPS now that just gets it within an inch or
Bob, what do you think?
tenths of an inch.
What's your opinion on this? You haven't chimed in
This-
yet, everybody else has.
This waiver request is explicitly for highway bounds. And, I mean, it sounds like there are really two topics, lot bounds and highway bounds. And lot bounds sound to me like it's much more important, that that's clear and permanent. And am I missing something here?
if you think lot bounds are more important than what they've got, it would be the addition of additional monuments. Is what I'm hearing you say.
Well-
If you believe the lot versus the corners to the town property, if you think that all the lot lines are also important to be bounded in the same way with these.
But I mean,
monuments.
this discusses
let me
Standard
just
highway
back up
bounds.
and be
This
clear.
Excuse me, just for clarification, and allow bounds to be set on the proposed roadway only as shown on the plan. So if it's not on the plans, it doesn't get set. And I think this is relatively, it's a question of the way the horrible way that the regulation is written. And basically, if you're happy with what you're seeing on the plans for bounds, you waive this waiver, you grant this waiver. If you're not happy, you disapprove this waiver.
Could you, I'd
Why?
be curious to hear
Absolutely.
what they want to say.
Yeah, sure.
So the regulation says that you do street bounds, and at the outer part of the property, you put bounds. It would not give you the lot lines. We're saying we'll do the street bounds and we'll put iron pipes at all the lot corners, which I think is better. I, all outer plan boundaries, not all lot corners.
I think we need to go to 365-62.
Standard highway bounds 6 inches by 6 inches by 4 feet shall be installed as shown on the plan. All intersections of streets with each other at all points a change in direction of curvature of streets and at all other planned boundary lines. A certificate from a registered professional engineer, registered land surveyor that he has set such bounds in compliance with this regulation shall be filed with the board. Such bounds shall not be installed until all construction work which would disturb or destroy bounds is completed. So that's 36562.
Which one is 34.C7?
Standard highway bounds shall be shown at all intersections of streets with each other, at all points of change in direction of curvature of streets, and at all other outer planned boundary lines. So, I'll just approach it from this direction. He's not requesting a waiver from installation of the bounds. The applicant's requesting a waiver from the requirement that the bounds be 6 inch by 6 inch by 4 feet, and instead replace the 6 inch by 6 inch by 4 feet with iron rod.
And that's the extent of the request for a waiver is to
Is that
go,
correct?
go from 6 by 6 to an iron post.
Yes.
And I'll just note that under 36562, it just says standard highway bounds 6 inches by 6 inches by 4 feet shall be installed. Doesn't say if it's,
That's not the one for the lot lines?
no, that's the sections that are being cited in the waiver request. So, the standard highway bounds, it gives the dimension, doesn't even give the material. Could be wood. Of course it wouldn't be, but
Yeah.
Where's there?
it's,
We really need to work on these regulations.
Well, the next one is 36563, benchmarks and property bounds.
Ah,
A,
oh, okay.
the benchmark shall be of granite, shall extend at least 5 feet into the ground, and shall have a disc. A certificate of a registered land surveyor shall be placed on the as-built plan. Is this different?
yeah, but he's not requesting a waiver.
Yeah,
for
we're
that.
not asking for a waiver on that.
For that.
So this he's doing with,
Okay, so that one will be done, and that's the one that deals with the lot line.
all right, and, yeah,
But that specifies iron pipe, or iron rod, right?
this said granite. This one, are you talking to me?
That's the
Yeah.
benchmarks.
That's the benefit.
That's the benchmarks.
But then it goes on for the lot,
It's not the-
All
doesn't it
right,
mention the lots
the
in
next
there?
thing, it says B, each lot shall be bounded on each corner by a property bound. Bound will not protrude more than 6 inches above the ground. Lot boundary markers will be either granite or concrete, at least 6 inches square and 4 feet long, or iron pipe,
Or,
at least 1.5 inches in diameter and 4 feet long. A certificate from a registered professional engineer or registered land surveyor stating that he has set such bounds in compliance with this regulation shall be filed with the board. Such bounds shall not be installed until all the construction work is done.
But the applicant's not requesting
I
a waiver from
misspoke,
that.
that's the one I don't like.
That's the one you don't
Because
like?
It's either or, the pipe or the bound. And
I would humbly suggest that the board grant this waiver and move on to some of the bigger fish.
I agree.
it sounds like we're calling the question. All in favor of approving the first waiver, say aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously.
But put this on the list planner so we can get this straight.
Yeah, I think it already is. So.
The original motion was made by Rob,
Okay.
by Bob, seconded by Tim. Great, wanna go on to the
And
second
the
one?
vote was 4-0.
What was it? Yep.
And abstain.
And one
And
abstention.
one abstain, sorry, my apologies. Do we wanna do this again? Keep that same process going? Make it easy for
Sure.
Wendy?
Okay, I move that the waiver number 2 be approved. It is written section 365-34.C9 and sections 365- 51.K, and
Is there a second?
thank you.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Discussion? Tilly?
I'm not sure about this one. This was up in the air. I'd like to hear from the applicant why, number one, and what are the differences between the roadway and the cul-de-sac?
I can answer that. The existing part of Lisa Lane is Cape Cod berm. So we were planning to continue that along the roadways, but at the roundings and the circles where plow damage tends to happen, we said that we would make it slope granite,
Okay.
so that it would be, you know, a little more durable.
That's it, Tilly? That answer the question?
Yeah, I might get back to it, but go ahead.
Bring it up, if you have something coming. Rob?
The sidewalk, there's a portion where the sidewalk abuts the road, and is that sloped granite also?
That's gonna be granite, vertical
It's gonna
granite
be
at that.
vertical granite?
Yep.
Okay. And I know this was a Larry Graham comment that he got back to us today or yesterday on. So where there's the parking in front of the trails, that kind of curbing will be what, separating the sidewalk from those 3 parking spaces?
Slope
Right.
granite.
Do you have any concern with sloped granite and wheel stops versus vertical and a sidewalk being right beside each other like that?
Those parking spaces are, I would say, you know, not gonna be used very often.
Right.
So the instance that you're gonna have someone pulling in and someone walking on the sidewalk are 1 in a billion. It's just not a concern.
I think those are really, those are really my only 2 questions. I think the benefit to the town on this, with the whole point of my understanding of granting waivers, is that, you know, that it makes sense. It's not only in the best interest of the subdivision, but it's in the best interest of the town, that the town is getting something by, you know, granting a waiver. Not a quid pro quo kind of
Yeah.
deal, but
Yeah.
that it makes sense in that regard, and I think this makes sense. It's a more natural look as well. I
Yeah.
I think
Consistent.
I
More
think there are
consistent,
some,
right?
yeah, I think some of the curves and the asphalt, the Cape Cod berm, you know, I think there is some curvature that has Cape Cod berms on it, I think, if I looked at the plans correctly. Forget it, don't worry about it. Never mind, so I'm all set.
Tim?
I'm good with it.
Good with this waiver?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of Cape Cod berm, but continuity, it makes sense.
I'm just gonna go out and, I think
Well,
it would
the
look
ben-
stupid to go from Lisa Lane, one,
Yeah.
that would make it look like 2 different sections of Lisa Lane, that would look wrong.
The
So very
benefit,
wrong.
yeah, the benefit is according to the bylaw, as well as what we all know, that's the benefit is the low impact development.
Oh,
You
absolutely.
know, that's the whole,
And
Turtles can crawl up.
in
Anyway,
this case,
that's-
more of an aesthetic, but yep.
yeah.
Well, I'm gonna call the question. All in favor of granting that second waiver, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All abstaining?
Same.
And let the record show the motion carried 4 to 0 to 1. Great. Do I hear number 3?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I move that the board votes to approve waiver number 3, which reads section 365-36.b, which requires pavement in turnaround shall slope to the inside and in place thereof allow the pavement to slope to the outside. Thank you for.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded to waive the, basically, the cul-de-sac goes towards the drains. Tilly?
365, 36D, the important part of this to me is the next one, the next section. But,
I don't,
so what is your explanation for that, Rick?
Well, the drains naturally occur at the edge of the pavement where they meet the, they meet the curving. So if you sloped it to the inside, you'd have a puddle. It really doesn't make sense. It should go on your list of
Changes?
changes to make.
Right.
People may not ask for that waiver, but I suggest that everyone needs it.
Rob?
This is one that actually I have strong disagreements about. I wouldn't push, though, there's no way I would push to not grant this waiver at this point in time in the process, but where I'm coming
I
from.
know where you're going.
I respectfully just so disagree with what you said, but this is something that the board needs to take up about this issue
If the
too.
center was planted, you'd want it to go that
And,
way.
and,
I get
and,
it.
and you had talked about maintenance, Harry, and so the challenge is not because of maintenance, don't create a landscape infrastructure system. The challenge, the design challenge is, how do we come up with a landscape infrastructure system that doesn't put water into closed pipes, but gets it back into the ground table as soon as possible, and deal with maintenance? And that's what design is called, and that's what we'll do. We'll talk about
Or
that
this is
later.
gonna be the summer of porous pavement. Okay, Tim?
That's another whole
No,
discussion.
I'm good with it.
Good with it? I don't have a problem with sending the water to the drain.
But you're putting any, excuse me, what about the 3-foot planting strip? Are you doing that?
Well, where are you, Tilly? I'm sorry.
365, 36D,
Yes, he is doing the 3-foot planting
3-foot
strip
planting strip?
between the
next to
sidewalk and
the
the curb.
sidewalk.
Yeah, we've got to lease that.
So-
In one instance, though, he is bringing, as was mentioned earlier, he's bringing the sidewalk to the road, separating that with a vertical curb in
Oh.
order to avoid any construction activity within the 100-foot buffer area.
Just because the Concom didn't want the
And what-
activity in the
what's-
buffer.
That's
Oh,
for 20 feet?
okay.
So-
30 feet?
Something for the benefit of,
Yeah, it's
Helping
more like
Concom.
100 and change.
Right,
Okay.
okay, all right.
good. All in favor of granting, number 3 waiver, say aye.
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 Aye. All opposed, all abstaining. Let the record show that motion carried 4-0 to 1.
Okay.
You copying and pasting a lot there. You're setting it up for that.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept waiver number 4, which reads, Section 365-36D, which requires maximum length of dead-end street in an RB district not to exceed 800 feet, and in place thereof, make it 855.
For Vineyard Lane.
Second.
Is there a second? Motion is made and seconded. This is where the rubber meets the road, I think, so to speak. Tilly?
I'm not in support of it.
Rob?
I guess just why the request for that waiver?
Well, in order to develop that area, we needed to be that long, and I think people should be aware of the fact that Lisa Lane currently is close to 1,700 feet long, and we are eliminating that 1,700-foot dead end and creating a situation where instead of being 900 feet in excess of the requirement, it's now only 55. So it is an improvement regarding length of dead end that's out there.
You require,
Your previous design had a longer length of road requirement or waiver request.
Did, and we pulled that street back and removed lots to do that.
You lost 2 houses for that, didn't you?
Correct.
Yeah. Tim?
I like their argument.
Oh, I agree.
what did he say?
He agrees with their argument.
Yeah, that it's
It is a valid
55
act,
feet
right.
beyond
It should be 800, yeah, that's right.
But it's 1,700 and they're turning that 1,700 into a,
But we got a new board here, and so what is done in the past,
But that was, it was more that the existing condition is actually that there's a 1,700-foot dead end. So what we're proposing to do is to actually create a through street that eliminates a 1,700-foot dead end. Then we are actually creating an additional cul-de-sac, which is, 855 feet, granted 55 feet longer. However, as part of that, if you will, the mitigation is that we are looping a road, so we are creating a through street. The other one is that we are actually looping a street. So, looping a water main. So where that water dead ended at the end of Lisa Lane, we're also providing an additional benefit. Not only are we eliminating the 900-foot dead end, but we are giving you a looped water main. We're providing connections to other places, and we're improving the electricity that actually is in this area as well. So there are a lot of offsets to that. I do understand that we're still requesting a waiver, but it's an improved condition, offset by many benefits to the town.
I think, I think, so Lisa Lane, which is however many lineal feet you were saying, by picking that up and making a loop to Searle Street, that has corrected the Lisa Lane problem in that it's no longer a dead end. But I think the fact of the matter is that you wanted to do this and needed to do this for yourselves in order to then provide that cul-de-sac of Vineyard Lane, because otherwise you would have had one long dead-end street that would have had to have met the subdivision ordinance, which would not have then allowed you to get as many lots as you have in here. So,
Can I, the original application that came in showed a one complete looped road,
Oh.
and you had more houses than.
It did.
It
Than
did.
we
It
currently.
did, more houses, more pavement.
Yeah,
We've gone through a couple of
Mhm.
iterations.
to do like a
Yeah.
coming around and doing it.
With respect to dead-end roads, I have a concern about them because of response time in extreme conditions. With a long dead-end road, if there were to be some kind of horrible accident at the mouth of the road, there's no way to get to the end if, God forbid, somebody has an emergency. It's a long way to get around. The good thing about looping roads like this is.
oh, I am in
If you're
favor of
dead
the
at one
looping
end,
road.
you can come in the other way, I mean.
I'm in favor
Yeah.
of looping roads,
And
no
so
question
I
about it.
look at it like we're going from 1,700 feet, and I don't know what the technical response time for that is for ambulance and emergency vehicles. But right now, although it does benefit you, sure.
Oh, it does.
At
That's-
this point, we're looking at 800 feet, which is 50 feet longer than our regulations.
Well, I think, I appreciate that,
Yeah.
that history of,
Oh,
that-
yeah,
that
yeah.
you, and I appreciate you sharing that there was a previous plan that had one loop, and there were more lots on it.
Yeah.
two
Um,
more,
Two more.
yeah.
So what they've done is it's a better circulation system. It's two fewer lots.
It was actually four. It
26.
was 26. There were
26
four
original,
fewer
I
lots from the
believe.
original.
We're down to 22 now.
Oh, I
So
saw
now
that.
I guess when I hear that, I start feeling more comfortable in terms of that it's not just benefits for the project, that it's also benefits for the town in that regard.
Well, the application was, the first application for the definitive was 24 in the subdivision and 2 on existing, already built, which you included some of your butters, I think.
When we actually showed this loop road that Mr. Cotilli's talking about, it actually showed 26.
Yeah. So,
That was in the preliminary, was that?
When we
Yeah.
did that, yeah.
no, it was, I'm sure I read that, because I pulled everything out. It's,
We
the
had 20,
application is not what you're saying.
we didn't show.
Yes, there
in
was a road like
our
you're
application for
describing,
definitive,
but
we
the
didn't put it in,
application
right? We showed the cul-de-sac in the first one for the definitive we're talking
is
about.
different.
It's because you're talking about the first definitive. We did show you a plan that was looped, because we didn't want to do the looped road. We wanted to do the definitive plan with the subdivision, but when we
Quickly
showed you the
yield or
loop,
something.
which was part of the,
But the number is,
thank you very much, that's when we showed the
That was the
26.
OSRD too.
Yes.
That's what it
no,
was.
it wasn't, because I pulled it out today and I was,
The
Looking at the
application
application.
for approval of definitive subdivision plan, as described, follows located Searle Street, Wilkins Place. The lots, number of lots proposed was 24.
Right, in the actual subdivision, we showed you the looped road, that was the one where we didn't have a cul-de-sac, that always had a cul-de-sac when we showed you the.
But this is the definitive.
Yeah, that's
Right.
why I said it was, when we showed the loop road though, we had shown it with 26 lots.
Right.
We just,
But that's history. What we have before us now is this, and just to focus back on the waiver, we're essentially being asked to waive the length of road restriction from 800 feet to 855 feet. Anybody have any more comments?
You know, to me, at first blush, 55 feet is not a huge distance. But to your point, there are 11 lots, including the lots on Grapevine Circle, that are within that risk zone. I don't know, it strikes me as being a lot of lots. A lot of,
do you wanna explain?
it kind of raises the risk level. And in fact, the way Vineyard Lane and Grapevine Circle are configured, it's really two dead ends rather than one dead end.
Right, but that one, the other one doesn't go over the 800. That's all I look
Right,
at it.
right.
Well, sure.
Even if you were to take it up Vineyard Lane and over, I don't think that's.
No, it doesn't.
Right, I recall that.
I'm just, and I mean, I don't have any great
That's not true.
defer to whatever the board wants to do. I look at it as though
If you blocked out the end.
1,700 to 855 sounds like an improvement
That's
to me.
what.
And
buy into
I
their-
certainly
I buy
agree with
into
that.
their argument.
I certainly agree with that. And the fact that that all of the lots, the existing lots, plus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, another 10 or so, are taking advantage of that loop, I think certainly is, it's a
Yeah,
very.
and not to mention the houses on Lisa Lane.
Oh, yes, exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. So,
I'm gonna call it then. Everybody's good with that? Good? All in favor of granting the fourth waiver? Is it the fourth? Yeah, the fourth waiver. Say aye.
aye.
Aye, Captain.
no.
All opposed? No, and abstentions, 1. Let the record show that the motion carried 3 to 1 to 0. Excuse me, 3 to 1 with 1 abstention, excuse me. Right? Did I get that right?
Yep, you did.
Stop me when I'm wrong.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board vote to approve waiver number 5, section, which reads Section 365-36.a and Section 365-51E, Section 365-51J, and typical roadway cross-section which requires 26 feet of pavement, and in place thereof allow 24 feet of pavement as shown on the plans.
Second.
Motion is made by Bob, seconded by Tim.
I just want to add a clarification to this. There's a citation of 3 different section numbers, but specifically the waiver is requesting a change of 26 feet of pavement to 24 feet of pavement, but that design standard is in the 3 different sections cited.
Mhm.
So,
Yep. Comments, Tilly? Reducing pavement by 2 feet? With the pavement?
And where exactly will this be?
Everywhere, throughout the
The
entire
whole
roadway.
thing?
The whole thing, yeah.
Except on Vineyard where it's even narrower,
Because the
right?
lane, no.
Yeah, I would agree to that. That's more in line with
Everything
the
we do, since
LID.
It's
you know.
lid friendly.
It's also, I'm sorry to interrupt, but Lisa Lane is 22 feet. We're gonna be wider than that. 26, we thought was just
Bulbous.
a little bit too much.
Rob?
No, Howard, please put this one on our list of things to cover. I mean, 26 should be a number that's gone.
That's a good point. That is a good
I'd
point.
consider it 22 feet, but that's another whole discussion.
Tim,
I'm good with it.
good with it? I'm gonna call it. All in favor of waiving the fifth waiver? Say aye.
Hi.
Aye. All opposed? All abstaining?
Stain.
Let the record show. The record, motion carried 4-0-1, right? Good. Hit number 6?
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I move that the board vote to approve waiver number 6, which reads, Section 365-36F requires minimum center line of radii curved streets to be 150 feet. In case of reverse curves, a minimum of 100 feet shall be required, and that all curved streets, et cetera, are designed to permit safe vehicular traffic.
Is there a second for that?
Second.
Motion is made and seconded. We're not even gonna discuss this one. We're just gonna vote, and this is the one, Larry. It's very technical. You really wanna go into this one. Larry recommended that we waive it.
I'm happy to do that.
I'm just curious. Just for discussion, I'm just curious.
I can explain.
That's
go.
what I was
Here we
afraid you were gonna say.
I can explain, I'll make it brief.
Thank you.
The way that this is worded, extremely gray and confusing, but Larry said that he thinks the intention was that between curves, reversed curves, where a curve does this and does this, that there was intended to be a length of tangent. We're asking for a waiver of that because of the topography and the location of the wetlands. We'd like to have it, eliminate would not have a tangent between it. We didn't read it as needing a tangent, so we said, we don't think it needs a waiver, but we'd be happy to ask for a waiver.
Yeah.
So you want to make the road a little wavier?
Yes.
Thank you.
This is.
I'm not gonna get into discussing, I was curious why, but I do wanna talk about this with the board at another
This
time.
needs to be clarified this summer.
I read reverse curve and I thought, wait a minute, it's a Star driveway, what are we talking about?
No, but it, wait a
Reverse the
minute.
curves.
Okay.
With the wavy.
Thank you.
With the wavy road, where the lowest part of that road, would you have a drain?
Yeah, it's not the vertical alignment, it's the horizontal alignment that we're talking about.
Oh.
Left,
okay.
right, not up and down. Tim?
I'm good with it.
Good with it? Okay, as am I. All in favor of granting the waiver, this is the sixth waiver, say aye.
All right.
Aye.
All opposed, all abstained.
Abstain.
Let the record show. Motion carried 4-0-1. Thank you, Wendy.
Mr. Chairman, I move the board vote to approve waiver number 7, which reads Section 365-36.J, which requires reinforced concrete pipe for storm drains and in place thereof allow high-density polyethylene HDPE storm drains as shown on the plans.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? This is pretty much a, well, maybe it isn't.
That's the same, similar one that we had before.
Yes, but this is for every storm drain pipe, and it's talking about the pipe itself, not the cover, right?
Oh, I thought that.
Yeah, this is talking about we're talking about the pipe, and as opposed to concrete pipe, which sometimes crumbles and crushes under the roadway. We're talking about using a polyethylene pipe that's extremely resilient and will be there long after.
And that's
We're
the
gone.
benefit to the town of the
Not
the
having
waiver
to replace
is
like a North
longer
Street.
life
They had to-
expectancy.
Peter Durkee had to dig up all the drains that crossed North Street.
Because they're all crumbled and crushed.
They were all
Yeah.
crumbled.
Did Larry respond to it? Did Larry respond to number 7?
It says H.L. Graham had no
No
objection.
objections. Are there different wall thicknesses?
Can you just can you just show me where in Larry's letter that is?
Yes, I can.
Larry's letter provided in your packet
Yeah.
on the back page.
Yep.
Fourth bullet point down, as requested waivers 7 and 10, we suggest that the 3-foot
Cover.
That's the 3-foot cover, yeah. That was-
Right. Revised accordingly, will have no objection to the request, and the request being waiver 7 and
Yeah.
10.
But
10 was the 3 feet.
So this is
the
just
way
the
I'm
cover?
reading that, as requested waivers 7 and 10, we suggest that 3 feet of cover condition be from the top of HDP pipe to the top of submembrane.
He specifically references the HDP pipe,
Yeah,
and then
That's
no
just a
objection.
caveat that he would suggest approving 7 and 10 with that.
3-foot cover.
got it. Got it. Thank you.
Tim, you good with it?
Yeah, are there different, like, wall thicknesses of the HDPE pipe? I mean, are there different, like, crush, like there's,
There are. The industry standard is, and what we would suggest is that ADS is the manufacturer, but it's an N18 pipe, and it can be placed as close to the surface as 12 inches and still have an H20 load go over it. We're gonna be 3 feet. Nothing less than that would be put in the ground.
so an H20 is like a dump truck full of sand?
Right,
Like septic covers and stuff?
Yep.
Septic,
right.
Good, Tim?
yeah, sounds good.
Tilly, you're
Are
all
we
right?
doing 7 and 10 together?
Right now, the only motion was made for
Larry,
7,
Larry,
sorry.
It kind of makes sense.
Why don't we
because
Let's go
they-
down the line. Let's go down the line and we'll,
All right.
We've already got the motion.
yeah, we'll get the motion going, so.
Right.
Voting for 7. All in favor for waiving number
Aye.
7? Aye.
All right.
Aye.
All opposed, all abstaining?
Abstain.
Let the record show 401. Great. Moving on to 8.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board vote to approve waiver number 8, which reads section 365.39C, 3B4, which requires operation and maintenance plans and stormwater management designs be designed under the jurisdiction of the Georgetown Planning Board, and in place thereof, allow the drainage system to be designed in compliance with the DEP stormwater policy.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Tilly?
I feel more comfortable we have to follow our own local bylaw for stormwater. I have no clue what DEP wants. So,
I can explain.
all right.
Maybe you want to,
What's the
explain-
difference?
I'll just tell you that DEP is more stringent
Mhm.
than the town of Georgetown. The new stormwater management policy, in fact, you should put it on your list.
Mhm.
Most towns have just adopted that as the standard, because you have to follow DEP standards. It's,
What's the difference? Can you be specific?
they have different, they have additional removals of pollutants, offsets to groundwater. There's a whole handbook that goes along with the Massachusetts stormwater policy. It's very specific, and you have to follow it, otherwise you can't get approved with a notice of intent.
What year is this book?
96, and then updated to, I think, 06.
06 or 08?
That was 08.
Oh, wait,
It
yeah.
was 08, yeah.
So in
Versus the Georgetown
getting
regulations, which were like in the 70s.
in maybe if I could phrase it a different way, if the board grants this waiver, they wouldn't be waiving you from adhering to something that's more restrictive than the Georgetown bylaws, because DEP
That's correct.
is more restrictive.
That's
So in
correct.
granting this waiver, you're actually bringing yourself into conformance with the more restrictive design standards.
That's correct.
Added protections,
Added protection, okay.
Being more stringent.
More stringent.
By
Why
granting this
are you
waiver.
doing that?
because we have to in here.
There are places where they conflict, and I don't have every instance particularly, but they conflict. You can't do both,
So you're doing what we said.
but you have to conform to stormwater management. They have some shape requirements, which don't conform to what Georgetown wants, so.
And you gotta match Concom.
What did Larry say about this? Did he have a response?
He has no objection.
No objections.
Objection.
Tilly, you all right with it?
Does the DEP have low impact development requirements?
They do not.
Pardon?
They do not.
They do not. And our bylaws,
You have to
Keen
meet the
on that.
Massachusetts Stormwater Management Policy and the associated regulations. You have to, which is what we've done.
well, according to our stormwater policy, LID is critical on a lot of these requirements that we have in place. And we did this 2011 by the management committee, did the bylaw. Did you see it?
Mhm.
And you don't want to follow this guideline?
Well, we have some LID techniques. They don't, I mean, I don't know who designed it, but they don't necessarily work for a subdivision. The LID techniques that you're talking about.
Can you give me something else?
The DEP stormwater policy is stricter than our regs,
I realize that,
so we're holding them to a higher standard.
yeah.
In
If
granting
we
the
don't
waiver.
grant this waiver, we're holding them to a lower standard.
But at the same time, they
How
have
does
to
that
follow the
sound?
higher standard anyhow.
Right, you know, they're not gonna get
They
through
conflict
Concom.
and you
Yeah.
can't do both.
They'll never get through Concom. This board will be saying one thing, Concom will be saying another, and we'll be playing ping pong with this for the next
So-
5 years.
So we really shouldn't support a waiver like that. If you have to follow it with
No,
Concom,
No, maybe I said it backwards, Tilly.
Did he?
If we don't grant this waiver, okay, we'll be in conflict. We'll be
If you don't
forcing-
grant the waiver, I can't comply with stormwater management policy. Therefore, I can't get a permit from the state or the local conservation commission. I
Again,
have to
this is-
follow the stormwater management
This
policy.
is summertime, this really needs to get squared up. Lots need to be fixed. Things have changed.
Howard, in all seriousness, your Excel spreadsheet that you've got going, can you please put this down there as one of the items so that when we sit down, and maybe you've already got it?
And really, it's, I just, as a side note, for that discussion, the effort of the planning board will be just to reinforce the changes that were being proposed last, but were passed over, which is just stricter definitions, and looking strictly at chapter 365, which is just the subdivision, and just make those the focus. Because all these that we're discussing that need to be addressed are out of chapter 365.
Yep, just the regulations. Rob? Good with it? Good with granting it? Tim?
Yeah.
I'm good with granting it. One quick question. Is it the building inspector that will verify that this is done?
This will be
In accordance with
verified
DEP.
by the subdivision inspector.
Okay. Very good. I'm good with it.
Okay, all in favor of granting the 8th waiver, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
aye. But I think,
Aye to the opposition, you're saying nay? I'm sorry.
no,
Did I
I'm
look at-
approving it, but
Okay.
I would like more surety on what book you're following. That's,
When you guys do
Well,
your
we're
regulations, I'd
voting
be
here.
happy to
You're-
chime
We're
in.
voting here, excuse me.
I'd be happy to
I'm very
chime in.
sorry, Tilly.
You're voting.
All opposed? All abstaining.
Abstain.
Let the record show the motion carried 4-0 to
no,
one.
I will abstain because I just want to know what DEP book
I understand, Tilly.
you're going to follow.
For Tilly's benefit, let's go back into discussion if it's all right with everyone. Go ahead, Tilly.
I'd
The
like to know
Massachusetts
what book,
Stormwater Management Policy.
what year is it that you're going to follow?
The regulations.
There's only one regulation, and that's the one that's in place today, and I believe it was revised through 2008. There's only one in place.
All right, so we can put that in.
You can just say the current Massachusetts Stormwater Management Policy.
Okay, I feel better with that.
Number
This,
nine.
this to me is the
Are we
most,
gonna vote now?
Yeah.
Thought we already
Okay.
Do you need to amend the
No,
motion?
I don't think we voted. What are we amending, guys?
nothing.
I don't
Okay.
think there's any amendment. I think
Okay,
it's-
I just wanna call that just to make sure that I have the vote correct, because I misheard evidently. All in favor of granting the 8th waiver, say aye.
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 All opposed? All abstaining.
Abstain.
With surety, please let the record show that it was 4-0-1. Because that was a little confusing for the faith, I'm sure.
Mr. Chairman, I move
Yes,
the board vote
Mr.
to
Watts.
approve waiver number 9, which reads, Section 365.49 and Sections 365-51.J in typical roadway cross-section, which requires that the center line of the roadway shall coincide with the center line of the street right-of-way, and that in place thereof, allow the street offset pavement from Station 4 plus 48.36 to Station 7.90.701 Lacey Lane.
Is there a second?
Second.
Tilly? And if I can interrupt, just for clarification, this is the section of roadway that you're asking the offset from that was moved over so that you could satisfy the Conservation Commission?
Correct.
Near the vernal pool there or something to that effect, the wetland?
There's a
resource?
wetland
The
that
wetland resource
is, within 75 feet of the roadway layout, and we pushed the construction over so that we could be outside of that.
Essentially, another town board is pretty much asking.
That's correct.
us to waive this for Concom. It's to satisfy Concom to get out of the buffer, but we can discuss it.
Is that what that means? You're
Correct.
gonna get out of,
So we have the 50-foot layout, and the construction normally is like this. Now it's a 50-foot layout, and the construction is,
you moved
it
it.
just moved over. It's still within the layout, it's just not centered.
How far off center is it?
Like 7 feet.
Oh, so it's still.
There's still tree lawn on both sides, there's still, room to work, and,
The length of that center line offset is approximately 110 feet.
it's 290 feet, but it goes from next to nothing to the 7 feet and then back. And we do that so that we're not doing a sharp
S-curve,
S-curve. Correct.
chicane or something.
Right.
So do the
Don't you
property
reverse
bounds that you set, do those go from the outside of the right of way?
They go at the outside of the right of way, so they would be in the same location regardless.
People will know that they're
Absolutely.
10 feet, 7 feet, whatever,
Correct.
closer.
That's correct.
Are any of those monument markings, the pins where this is
Those are all
happening?
street bounds.
Anyone else?
So can you explain to me the 4 plus 48?
That's a station on the road, so if you look at the profile, or the topography for that matter,
I know, I've seen it on the plan, I know where it is.
So there's 4 plus 80 is the station, and then 7 plus 90 is the station. It's just telling you between what station's on the road. It's a way to get yourself to a certain location. Like, all the drain structures have a station associated with them. It's a way to orient yourself on the plan.
That's it, okay,
Just says from here to here.
yeah,
Calling out, that's all.
Yeah.
Good?
okay. I wondered if it meant anything else. Okay,
I'm gonna call that one. All in favor of granting number 9?
Aye.
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 All opposed? All abstaining?
Abstain.
Let the record show carried 4-0-1.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Watts.
thank you so much.
Infidelity.
I move that the board vote to approve waiver number 10, which reads sketch 8, typical roadway cross-section, which requires 3 feet of cover over the drain and in place thereof allow less than 3 feet of cover as shown on the plans.
Is there a second for that?
Second.
Okay,
Call
motion's
the
been made
question.
and seconded. Call the question since we already discussed it in relation to the 7th one. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye?
Right.
And all opposed? And abstentions?
Abstain?
Let the record show, motion carries 4-0-1. With the voting of the waivers, I would like to ask, probably because it's gonna be the last opportunity you're gonna have, the public if they have any more comments.
Harry, just before you go to the public.
Sure, absolutely.
So I had some additional comments or questions that aren't part of the waiver discussion, so.
Okay.
Whenever,
Do we wanna do it?
You
that
you usually
first,
do
or-
public and then board.
Yeah, we can always, yeah,
So
why don't we deal with the questions from
that's
the
fine.
public, because they may reflect something that you have, and
yeah, that's fine.
then we'll bring it back to the board. And are there any more comments from the public? Yes, please, have you signed in, sir?
Yes.
And state your name, please.
Andy McLaughlin, Lisa Lane.
Andy, could you come forward? We had a problem at the last meeting of the public comments not being clearly recorded on the microphone.
Just a quick question, actually. What are the next steps?
What are the next steps in this process?
Yeah.
Howard, you wanna take, you wanna field that one?
Public comments will be heard tonight. The applicant will finalize any final aspects of the drawings that need to be revised from the last comment. And then we'll start moving into drafting up the decision to reflect the discussion on waivers and any conditions that the board sees fit for the subdivision. The applicant's still in review with Concom, and that's almost complete.
Oh, yeah,
What's that?
we're not expecting, to have another, we have one more review, maybe with minor changes, but we're not expecting. any
Similar to
major
this
changes.
meeting with the
Yeah,
board.
'cause we have a waiver-free plan there.
The largest outstanding item, in my opinion, for the review of the application is the applicant's coordination with the trust and the task force to see how the inclusionary housing bylaws can be met, and then we're nearly complete.
That answer your question, sir? Any other comments? Can I just say it's really good to see all of it?
They all proved you wrong, Harry.
No, this room was full.
Quite a few.
There's quite a few.
It's 1/3. It's 1/3. Just about 1/3. A good 1/3.
You said nobody would still be here.
Oh, I was wrong. Hopefully,
Challenge.
hopefully, one of you will see the process, and maybe you'll be the, I don't know, maybe you'll be an associate member. That's the select board for that, right? At any rate, now that we've done those, Rob, did you want to bring up some points?
Yeah, please,
By all means.
some questions, and hopefully some of these are items that we don't even need to discuss. They're just little cross the T, dot the I's kinds of thing. But the last meeting, we had this discussion about the no-cut zone, and I was asking about no disturbance, and there was some discussion about you couldn't put on no disturbance, and I was talking about no grading. Do you remember when we were talking about that? Can you, what is the no-cut definition? What does that mean?
And you can't cut it, you can't disturb it. There's no cut, no disturb.
Does it mean you can't grade on it? Okay. Would you be willing to just put a definition on the plans to what no-cut means? Because a contractor's gonna look at those plans, and when I see it, I think of no-cut means you can't touch the trees. But it doesn't necessarily imply to me that you can't go in there and be manipulating the grades and so on and so forth. So,
And that can also, Rob, sorry to interrupt, but that can also be written into the decision of what the board understands a no-cut zone to mean.
that's fine on the decision, but the decision doesn't go out into the field with the construction.
Agreed.
So I
And
think,
it certainly can reflect what language is written on the plan as
Just
well.
want a definition, we can
so if it reflects that you're not grading in there and all that'd be
we'll provide it.
Not a big deal, right?
Can you,
We'll do it.
can you just show me on the drawings where enhancing site distance to Searle Street, it was your mitigation 14, can you show me
Where we had to take down that
What's
wall and then
happening?
take the vegetation out, Rich,
where it is on the plan?
on the beginning, Sarah.
Yeah.
Oh, you wanna go to,
And I, again, I appreciate
Having
you
some technical
dealing with somebody who's
Still?
probably gone through this item.
I saw the hill, I assumed it was all corrected.
Well, maybe we can find it, but just let us know what sheet it is.
right in the corner.
So right here, there is a wall that comes down and intersects another wall at Searle Street. We're gonna lower that wall. And then there are some trees over in this, coming from here. It's on the topo sheet as well.
How much are you gonna lower the wall? What are you gonna lower it down to?
Depends on which side of the wall you're standing on, because one side's higher, the dirt's higher on one side than the other. But the
So
top of
straight
the
side.
wall itself will come down, roughly 2 feet.
From where it is now?
Yeah.
And is that, I can't read it from here, but is that information on the drawings?
Yes.
Tells the contractor what you just said?
Yes, it is.
Okay, all right, thank you. I don't know, maybe I missed it on the drawings, this is one of those little details, we don't even need to discuss it, but we had talked last time about where the sidewalk comes into, you have the esplanade separating the sidewalk from the road, and then the sidewalk comes into the road, you get these slivers. I didn't see those being reflected in the drawings as being changed, so,
It is not, however, I know what you're talking about. We don't want the little triangles and slivers. We wanna,
Yeah.
where it goes down to less than a foot, we're just gonna make a 90.
yeah, and so if the drawings can reflect that, because that's
Yeah.
all the contractor's got to go on. Drawings,
Okay.
I may be misreading the drawings, but that Wood Road connector, it looks like on the drawings, or at least the one drawing that I looked at, it looks like the graphics are indicating that the connector path not only connects to the sidewalk, but it also connects to the road. And if that's true, I'm assuming that it's only about connecting to the sidewalk.
Oh, it's the road.
Okay, so then maybe I didn't understand it. I thought it was a footpath. It's for vehicles?
It's a woods road, so it has to be provided with the same access that's there now.
You're supposed
It's
to
on
have a-
grade with the roadway, right?
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
there's an
It's
apron,
like a curb cut.
there's an apron with the curb cut, and then it'll turn into a gravel road on the lot.
Okay, so,
Is
You have
it-
to provide the same quality of access, so you can
So this-
relocate the
this-
easement,
it's
so
this
it
right
goes,
here,
and then it
right?
goes onto the street, but we have to provide for it, you can't block it.
and it has to be provided for
has-
vehicular use?
Whatever the use is presently, so you have to provide, if it's, so wide, you have to allow people to actually go in and traverse, and just going to the sidewalk isn't sufficient.
Well, you folks should be telling us if it has to be for vehicles or not.
Well, that's
'cause I
what it's
don't
on the
know.
plan.
So it is for vehicles, because she said you didn't know.
It's provided with the same access that's there now. A vehicle can access it now.
I don't know if they do, is my point.
I don't think a vehicle, am I on the line here?
Please state your name and you won't be.
Kevin Duncan, 46 Earl Street.
Give us a
That
little
road
bit of
goes right
history about the
through-
Wood Road.
Right through the Wood Road, and then it comes through my property. Has there been a vehicle there in my 20 years? A vehicle could not get through there in 20 years. And, limbs and everything down.
Mhm.
You might be able to walk it without tripping, but it's just how it is.
So-
Take a look out there.
I don't think you can block it.
Well, you cannot block it, I mean, there's no way you can.
Okay, so if you can't block it, then what you're telling me is that it has to be kept open to receive a vehicle in that regard.
I'm not saying, it doesn't have to be open to, it does not have to be kept open to receive a vehicle, it has to be kept open, unobstructed. So that means it has to
So
go
does
to
a
the
curb-
street.
So a curb would be obstructing that, correct?
A curb, absolutely it would,
And there's no curb there,
none.
you sure?
Positive.
Okay, so you have no curb here. Okay, I'm sorry, why does the graphic show 2 lines?
We're gonna have to cut one line off. But I assure you that it's intended to be a paved apron up to the back of the sidewalk, and
Yeah.
then gravel, which is there now, gravel.
Yeah. Okay, I just, so. I think
So it won't be
that's-
any problem to fix that on the plan and make it represent
Oh, no,
that,
of course
right?
So just so that. So there's no curbs, so whatever the legal right is for what that is and how it's used, that will continue to stay in place.
Exactly.
Doesn't sound like you can extinguish it.
So, no, so,
You cannot.
so that, so,
What is the law about that? What number is this? You would probably know.
I mean, it's not, it's common
Legally.
law, so it's an
common law?
easement, it's common law, so it's actually an easement right, and you are only allowed to relocate an easement, but you are not allowed to block it. So we could pick up and have the easement then traverse down the roadway so people have access, but we cannot cut it off.
when you, I'm just curious, so when you deal, so there's a written easement that goes with that?
Yeah, I think it was in the actual chain, that's why we had to keep it, remember you asked me about it.
It's on the plan, it's called the Woods Road, it's on the original subdivision plan.
When I go back and I check the title, so what we do is when we actually create these plans, if you have some woods road that just is on ground but not on a plan, not documented, not recorded, not of notice, I take them, then I don't care, take them away. This one is actually on a documented, recorded plan.
Right, so you have to, so you have to
honor
keep
it.
it. And is there any, are there any legal requirements to, obviously, you couldn't take it and say, our entrance was here, and we're now gonna take that entrance and move it a mile away.
Oh, no.
So taking that extreme pic, are you legally okay to move it how you have moved it, to where you've located it?
Right, what the law is, common law application with regard to easements is you are permitted to relocate, provided you do not create a more burdensome access point for the people or persons who have the rights
That's
to
the
it.
definition of more burdensome.
Yeah, so you can't, I can't make it impossible, so I can't block it with like some sort of a
Or put
berm.
it a mile
I
away.
can't, yeah, I can't say, oh, look, you can access it all the way down here, they won't allow, I
Okay.
can't do that.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Let's see, all right, you already did the curbing at the three trailheads. I don't understand how sheet 20, the erosion control plan, works. Can you explain that? I've read it and looked at it. I don't understand how it is applied, how it.
It's a guide for the construction
Right.
of the road.
I understand that.
I'm glad you brought this up. I would have that on my
I mean,
list.
this is a document that has been used several times in the past for guiding the construction of a roadway.
So I understand that. But I'm looking at it and I see, how does a contractor look at this and determine from one of these permanent seating mixture charts which one to use as an example? Like, how does this drawing work as a construction document? How does it work?
Well, it goes in, it's in hand with our stormwater management
Yeah.
and our, what's called a Nepetes permit.
Yep, need to-
And the site contractor has a booklet that says, here's what you have to do in this situation, here's what you have to do in this situation. Here are the inspections that you need to make, here are the protocols you have to follow in certain situations. It's all given to them so that they can do it. Now, typically, a planning board does not get involved with that. Contractor goes in, they cut the trees, they clear and grub, they do whatever grading, put utilities in, and you know, this document is a general guideline of how to accomplish that.
Well, so not seeing, I'm familiar with everything that you mentioned in those other, but not, I don't, this is a big question, I think, and so we don't belabor it tonight, maybe it's something that Larry can respond to directly, this question
Yeah,
that
I
I'm
was-
raising, so
So
we
what
can
is the
just keep-
question?
The question is, I still don't, with everything that you said, I still don't understand how this document is to be used, and then I guess, you know, just asking that question again, how does a contractor determine which of these mixes to use?
These are
and where?
seed mixes for,
These
to
are
prevent erosion?
these are permanent seed
Chris,
mixtures.
yeah.
And there's 14 of them, and what concerns me is that this is all boilerplate stuff. You know, some of the things that are on it are intertidal plants.
Like I copied it from a package.
Well, and it's not that that's and it's not that that's a bad thing. I understand
Cover all
why
the
we do.
all varied situations with a general document.
Well, it's a starting point, shall I say? It's a good starting point. And I'm just not clear on how a contractor applies these seed mixtures to the different situations on the site. I'm just not clear how they would do that. And so, instead of,
In
what
other
I'm
words-
suggesting is that,
What's the criteria for selecting mix one as opposed to mix two? to
and
both
and
for a
where?
site?
And where does it go on the site?
Well, it does say, there's some guidance on the right. It's very difficult to read, but
This is the specific requirement of DEP. This is what they tell you to use. And there are notes on there that said that it's an application for roadside
Yep.
or for stabilizing gravel. So there are a lot of different situations that occur on the site
Yep.
that you can't use one seed mixture or one process for. I guess the good thing is that we've got a contractor that's built many roads and been involved with a lot of projects, and they know how to build roads.
Yep.
Quite frankly, this document is required and it's been asked for, but it's maybe a document that isn't needed.
So,
But-
you know,
It is a very good guideline.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I thought it was
So-
too.
so I guess I'd just like to find out what Larry, if Larry says this is okay, then that's fine.
Well, why I
Well,
wanted
he-
to question Larry was
Maybe he already
because-
has.
He's reviewed it, he made comments, we changed it based on his
I wish he was here.
requests.
Okay, well, that's good. That's good to know.
And that's how we ended up with this document.
Okay,
There were things that he asked us to add and take off.
okay. I didn't, that's kind of what I was asking. in
My
that
question
regard.
was, in the left
Valid
part,
question.
when I read that, you have several areas there that say there's gonna be a review, a year or a sequence review throughout. And my question would be, who's gonna do that review?
Well, the planning board has the town has an inspector, and we also are involved in the construction, we do inspections. The Conservation Commission uses that document, we have to get certificates of compliance from them.
I understand that,
So,
I'm talking about a year
it's-
later or after the fact, after it's all in place, and
It's the town inspector or it's the engineer,
who's gonna maintain it? That's,
who's gonna maintain which part?
When the town takes over,
Drainage area.
takes over the road, the town
Town.
does.
the town will be responsible. Only those old, but the drains that you have, like the retention areas, they're off the roadway.
But they're all accessible through easements.
And
And
that's,
they're also a function of the roadway.
and in theory,
I
they're
don't
taken
know
care
if
of by the town.
our road surveyor has ever done that. I don't know if
They
they're,
have, they did it on Harris Way where it's underground and there's, when we adopted Abbey, we took over.
I know,
You know what
because we-
happened typically?
because it wasn't
Remember
done
Hickory?
yet, but
Yeah.
after
Remember
it's all
Hickory?
done,
Somebody built something and we
that's
couldn't get
what I
access
think that's about,
and it got moved.
not just the
Same thing happened in
construction.
Pillsbury.
Pillsbury too?
Yeah.
Really?
Someone
Okay.
built a shed and they had to move the shed.
Oh,
I remember that one.
they can't block those easements.
So,
So it's not.
these are, so on the tree planting detail,
Mhm.
who is, when it says owner shall, who's the owner? It talks about pruning the trees. It says the owner shall guide. Who's the owner?
Well, it's the developer until the town takes ownership. So the developer owns the road.
So the developer will be the owner in this case and will determine how to prune the trees
Yeah.
that go in?
Until it's accepted by the town, yep.
Okay. With that, okay, on the detail, you want to add, do not cut the main leader. You
Is that a
have,
problem? Doug?
what developers do all the time is they prune trees and they don't know what they're doing. And they prune the central leader, and I'm not suggesting this is what you guys do, but this is what happens often. And so, once you prune the main leader, the tree is no longer a tree and it shoots up two. And so, that's a
We-
simple one.
Our trees,
Yeah.
I think we planted, how many trees were planted over Whispering Pines and hundreds,
About
right?
100, yeah.
Hundreds.
Yeah.
And I don't think any of them needed pruning, they're already pruned when they show up. at the
Yeah,
site.
they usually are.
Yeah.
But the note, when you read it,
Sure.
it's
We'll add it.
not what it says.
No problem, we'll add the note, not an issue.
I'm just going by what the
Yep.
drawing says.
Yep, not a problem.
It's modified.
Reflect, you do as you can read. The drawing needs to reflect, I think, what you do with these tree plantings on the detail if you encounter poorly draining soils or clays. Because the detail as shown creates a bathtub. So you need to provide some sort of a note that gives the contractor direction what to do if they encounter that condition. Okay?
And just because you brought it up, all the trees are guaranteed
Yep, for
to
1 year.
survive
Yes,
at least a year?
yep, and we will replant.
What
Is that a year after-
Is that a year after
It's a year
the
after.
town accepts the road?
It's a year after acceptance.
Or a year after you get your subdivision permit, or a year after base coat? A year
And those
after?
trees-
This is,
No, I'm curious about that, because
Well, the
that
year-
was the first time I heard.
the year guarantee is up to the board. Okay, the definition of where this year falls.
Okay. A year after installation, then
Once-
I'm not clear on all that.
Once the project is accepted, once the project is done and the technical review agent has signed off on everything is built according to the plans,
Oh, okay,
at that point, that's when the guarantee would kick into place. Because what you want to avoid, Harry, is having the trees go in early,
okay.
before
Too early.
construction, exactly, before
Right.
construction is done. A couple years goes by, the 1 year guarantee's gone.
Right,
Meanwhile, trucks have been driving over the routes, whatever, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
So the guarantee doesn't start until the project is finished. That's the typical.
okay, so we'd be at least at base coat on the street before you did that anyway.
We wouldn't put the trees in for a long time anyhow.
Kind of do
They
that
don't-
stuff at the
The
end.
very end, so it's,
Usually, anyway, till
it's not a
the end.
problem. It's not a
But-
problem at all. We're 1 year from,
Final sign off by the site inspecting engineer.
And I know these comments about cutting a main leader and poorly draining soils is probably thought of as nitpicking in some camps, but the street trees to the public road systems are very, very important, in my opinion, and so I take it very serious. On the plant list, I appreciate you putting the species that you put down. But it's not what I was talking about in terms of, it doesn't tell you the size, it doesn't tell you the location, it's not a plant list. It's just, they can be any one of these trees. And it doesn't say there are 10 of these trees, there are 50 of these trees, there are 40 of these trees. They're 2.5-inch caliper, they're balled and burlap.
the
they're-
caliper I thought was down, the caliper's
Maybe
down.
maybe I missed it.
The
Caliper's on
caliper's
there.
on there.
Maybe I missed it.
Ball and burlap,
For everything, right?
those,
Yeah, we have them all done.
2-inch
Okay.
caliber or 1.5,
So
2-inch
can you,
caliber?
can you just-
I think it's 2.5.
it's on the detail.
It's on the detail sheet,
It's
but
on the
one
detail.
second, I have to,
Is it
If you
the
look at
same
my-
symbol for all the species, so there isn't a knowledge of the number to be divided?
Well, I don't know that.
17,
They're
sheet
saying
17.
that, that's what I
And
couldn't
it may
tell.
be that you don't want to end up being 10 of the same and 10 of another. You
Yeah. makes
want to
sense.
ensure that it's a mix of the species.
Well, so maybe the size is on.
the size, I
What
remember
page?
seeing the size, that's why. 17, sheet
Sheet
17.
17 of 20. Okay. 3-inch junction plant, 2-inch diameter. Yep, there it is. So you've got the size. So then, what I don't see is what species is going where.
I don't think we know immediately what's going where, and we
That's-
won't until it's like you're in. I think it,
No,
well, I think that's why. I mean, that's why
Okay,
they,
but
like, to
that's-
your point,
yeah.
what is the certain
Well,
circumstance?
I mean, it could just be a condition that it's the equal number
Yeah.
of each tree spaced evenly through the site.
however you wanna do it, that's up to you, but somehow the contractor needs to be guided in terms of there are X numbers of this species and there are X number of that species, and I know where to put them. And if the note is you're gonna stagger them every other way, then that tells them where to put them. So that direction needs to be provided. And you need to remove the sugar maple from a street tree planting list. They don't take the salt well. They're a bad tree for that. So you need to delete the sugar maple.
What do you
and
want
then-
in place of it?
That's up to you. You know,
And it's really not.
yeah, it is. It is. You guys, you have experts. That's your job.
Okay. I did get it from a suggested street tree planting list from the University of Massachusetts.
Would you send me that list? I'd
Sure.
love to see it, that shows street tree
Okay.
plantings for sugar maples.
It's on their list.
I'd love to see it. I'd love to see it, because that would be very interesting. Now, where the location of these trees gets a little bit more complicated is that I'm assuming there are wires overhead?
No.
No wires overhead. Excellent, non-issue.
No wires on these streets.
All right.
It's a subdivision.
All right, so that was that. Is there anywhere in the drawings that I've missed that tells the lawn, how much loam and how much the seed spec for lawns?
Nope. It's not part of the planning board's jurisdiction.
It's part of the planting plan. I mean, where you're gonna.
Within the strip, within the grass
Within the
strip
grass strip, the rights.
of the sidewalk, right?
Yeah.
The public domain, what.
Do we have a detail on that? We have a detail, don't we?
Yeah, that's
I
all.
think
I just
Josh
wanted
meant
to see it.
Homes, that's what- we have it on there for this.
The homes can do
Oh,
whatever
no,
they
we
want.
can't touch the lot. No, we're talking
not
about the
talking-
sidewalk.
yeah.
Absolutely, just to be clear on that.
Well, you can go on, I'll find it.
Okay. And, these are Larry questions, I don't know, but one question is, do we need language somewhere that allows the town to, if a tree that's planted on a lot, not in the town right of way, but on a lot, because some of the trees are planted on lots, street
Who
trees
need
planted on
easements?
lots.
Who need easements?
And so there needs to be some
needs to
language
be an
that
easement.
allows for within that first year, if the tree is dead, that someone can come back, the town can come back in and replace it.
We maintain a temporary slope easement for plantings, and that's the point of it. That's the reason. And we don't have to release and relinquish.
You guys
Does
can
the
hold it, you
slope-
guys can fix it, you're
That
responsible
slope easement,
for
so
it.
you know how you have it down
Even-
the sides of both roads?
It's, so that's, would cover those,
Even if somebody else bought it and they didn't want them to do it, you'd still be able to go in because you have the easement.
Yeah,
but it, does it
Only
speak
until the
to?
roadway's accepted.
right, until the road is
Well,
accepted.
see, but that's
After the
different,
roadway is
so,
accepted, that's,
Well,
then the
that-
roadway is accepted.
well, that's where
Then
then,
we'd need a permanent
But
that's-
easement from the owner.
Right, but don't you have a, oh, you mean ad infinitum, so like 20 years down
not,
the road?
just for that 1 year guarantee period.
Now, let me ask you a
Oh.
question. For the 1 year guarantee period, though, don't you, when you do your acceptance, the hot top's done, everything's complete, don't you wait one
Absolutely.
full year?
Yeah,
Yeah, before you accept, so it runs in tandem. We're gonna have the street, it's never gonna be an issue. We aren't gonna release that temporary
You have to
slope
hold for
easement.
a year.
So what you do is you complete the roadway, the trees are in, everything's set. 1 full year has to transpire before we can actually sell to you, or I shouldn't say sell, pardon me, convey the fee to you.
Right away.
That's just the way the works, and I think part of that is so that we're not only providing you with a warranty, but we own it.
Yeah, right, so as long as you want.
Because you
Okay,
still,
it's-
because you still
depending
own
upon
the
the
plowing.
cycle.
So that's,
Exactly.
still plow.
Exactly.
So,
Right,
So that
you
was-
still
that was-
plow and
to
take
answer
care
your
of
prior
that.
question, sheet 11 of 20, which is the profile sheet, calls for 6 inches of loam seed on all areas within and adjacent to the roadway that was
thank you,
disturbed.
that was it. I didn't see it, and that's great. And then maybe, I don't know where this gets recorded, but somewhere that the school district gets notified somehow, and I don't know whose responsibility this ends up being, but that 3 months prior to, lots starting to go online, that the school district is kept appraised of buses and bus travel and construction of existing, you've got the existing neighborhood, you've got all this construction taking place, that the school district is notified. I didn't say that clear at all in the beginning. The school district is notified that when construction is gonna be taking place, that they have some notice so that they can notify the bus, they can notify the schools, they can notify the kids, that be aware construction is gonna be happening in such and such a town, in such and such a site. You're gonna be seeing construction traffic. So I don't know where that responsibility falls, but it needs to fall somewhere.
Informally, Rob, I know it can happen when we have our monthly department head meeting, that I can be stating that Turning Leaf subdivisions, start construction at this and such a time, and the people in attendance is from the schools is one.
What about like with Pembroke, with the new school, instead of you taking on more work and more responsibilities, well, with the new Pembroke? So the group who is in charge of the Pembroke construction, they are the ones responsible for notifying the school district of when things are happening like that.
The school building committee?
School district, they're typically, and it's typically is to Carol Jacobs.
Well, what if we have Howard call?
Well,
How about when the subdivision permit is issued, we'll send a copy to Carol.
Okay,
How's that work?
that's fine, that's fine.
We
That's
usually,
fine.
Upon issuance of the subdivision permit, a copy shall go to the school superintendent.
Yeah, with,
As a condition. That work for everybody?
yeah, and then she can take that information and share it with,
Distribute
Yeah.
as needed, but Good,
good. That was it.
great.
Thank you for your indulgence.
Tim?
All set.
Good. Tilly?
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
I would just, like I said before, with, that sheet, I was only concerned, with Larry, was he gonna follow up on it? Because there's several areas there that they said that they were gonna review it. and that
Oh,
would re-
the sheets.
Not
what is
just
it,
on construction, but,
17?
a year
Right.
later, or whatever, and that's what I was concerned about, and I'm glad we're gonna find out from Larry.
I'll
And all of those have to be, before the street is accepted, all of the stormwater areas need to be completed and functioning and have all of those things that we're checking, those have to be complete
Right.
before the town accepts it. So the town's not gonna get something that's not finished or hasn't been looked at. So that's the reason, we're looking at it so that we don't have an issue at the end of the road,
Yeah.
handing it over to the town.
Yeah. Well, I'm particularly, all along is the drainage area and, like Rob was bringing up the trees, that's really critical. I mean, there's nothing that can beat that. I don't care how many retentions you have. You got trees, it's gonna stop up that water.
I just have one other comment I wanted to throw out there in terms of the drainage basins. Subdivision that was built around the corner from my house, Acorn Way. When they were doing the construction, all the silt would run off and go down to the bottom of that pond, and essentially it has like 1% pervious left in it. We get a lot of rain and water sits there for weeks. Something was said that they were supposed to put something in the bottom of that pond during construction that would act as a filtering agent
what
to
you
keep
usually
the
do is
silt
you put it
from
on your
going
ca-
down into the.
No, you put it on your grates.
Yeah, this.
Put it on your grates.
Right, here we have silt socks that are gonna go in the basins so that the siltation from when I say basins, the catch basins in the road. There'll be a device there that will catch it. We also have temporary siltation basins at every stormwater area that'll be temporary during construction. And before that goes online, it'll be dug out and rebuilt. So we should not have that issue that you.
They went and tried to dig it out, still doesn't drain. I'm just an observation
Yeah.
I made from, one is sort of okay, and the other one is just, I mean, might as well be clay.
Also has something to do with the fact that the water table is pretty high, I mean, you
Yeah,
know,
could be that.
well, I mean, you can look
They've
right
increased the
across
separation
you can
from,
look right across the street and see the pond that's across the street from it, and I mean, you look at it and you say, how the heck did these calculations
What
ever
did they
work?
increase the separation?
they've increased the requirement
You know
for
where-
separation
I
from
know
the
exactly
groundwater
where
to the
you
bottom of
live.
the pond.
I drive by it every day, yeah, and I look and I say, yeah, that's full, yeah.
2
it
feet.
was.
But when they
Pond's full.
dug those ponds, they worked fine. And then,
And then,
at some point
and then
shortly.
they changed all the piping, wearing out and going into Jackman, feeder for Jackman Brook. Underneath, they did all the culvert underneath, goes across the street to
Right.
the
to that
corner
brook.
there, and then back across again. Yeah, they probably didn't get the invert right when they changed the pipe.
My only comment was just in case there is something you can do, or
Yeah, we've
some standard procedure that.
we've planned for it, yeah.
To that issue, that's a discussion to have separate from this. But, you know, the drawings are your starting point, and then, so you gotta get it right in the drawings, you're only as good as your weakest link. And then during construction and the installation and who's observing it, you gotta get it done right.
Bingo.
And you're only as
That
good
was
as
a-
your weakest link, and then maintenance, and you're only as good as your weakest link, and,
The weak link was the-
so,
It's up to the site inspecting engineer
The
to
site
witness
inspecting
this.
engineer.
well, that's one step of it, but the
Was the one
maintenance
that we
part
used to have.
is, the maintenance part's important.
Millennium was this, like,
And it's hard. Anyways, that's another whole discussion.
It's 9:30, so are we able to,
Uh-huh.
just suggesting we,
Absolutely. We've heard all the public comment, we've heard everything from everybody. Is there a desire to close the public hearing?
There is some.
First,
Close the public
motion
hearing.
to close the public hearing, is there a second? Second. All in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye.
Hold on a second, can I talk?
Discussion, go ahead, go. It's not
You're gonna
good.
close that before you do your mediation?
Mediation?
You know,
your,
are you-
your inclusionary housing bylaw, do you want the
And
public
your-
to be able to comment on that? As well as do you want the public to be able to comment on the hearing where we review the decision?
and the mediation, I mean, we've granted all these waivers, what have you agreed to for the mediation? You haven't had that
What's
vote
been
yet.
offered? Everything that's been offered.
We didn't vote for it yet, did we? Are
I
you
thought-
supposed to vote?
I thought when you voted on the waivers, you were accepting what they're doing. for
No, I
that.
wasn't. I didn't even really look at it.
Okay. Well, it's.
I mean, not tonight, anyway,
No,
with the,
but to that point, you're gonna, you've granted the waivers,
right.
but what are you gonna be voting on? Accepting their, if you don't approve their mediation, then they don't have to do it?
I think so. I think that would happen, wouldn't it?
I want them to do all the.
You mean the
the
mitigation?
mitigation.
All the
that they've
mitigation we
offered.
show we're
I
doing.
would
Right,
like them
so-
to do all of
I
it.
mean, we'd expect you to include that in the decision.
The decision.
Right. I mean, I sent it, and I did send it to Howard in Excel format.
In
So
Excel
he could
form, so
download
you
that?
just copy and
Yes, I
paste
did.
it. Yeah, so,
But all that has been listed on purpose so that you would have it in front of you, so the mitigation was set, and then when you do your decision, you can incorporate it.
I think the only, when Tilly raised the housing issue, is that something that the board thinks the public deserves to have the ability to speak on? Or is that conversation take place at their meeting?
Well,
I think we
and
have all the
with that, Rob, you
information
can even
we need.
ask that the task force and the trust come in here.
Yeah, that would be a good thing.
And, well, I'm just saying, that's should be open during the public hearing as well, if you decide that they need to come in.
Yeah.
Because if you close the public hearing, I don't think you can invite them in, and
I think we have all the information we really need.
No, we don't have the affordable provision yet.
Well, that's
once
just a
you close-
recommendation, I
So
mean.
hold on a second. Once you close anything, any hearing, anything, it's over. No more information is acceptable. You have closed it. It's dead.
From my position, I at this point realize that it's a binary choice. It's, you will build 2 units on site and do an in lieu payment of 0.2, or it will be 100% in lieu payment.
Yeah, they also. have
I
the
don't really
option to
need that much information to know
Buy
my
offsite.
decision.
And
I don't need any of this information to know my decision, so.
Well, I think you should keep the public hearing open.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think it's.
Okay, all in favor of, it was to close the public hearing, if the motion dies, if it dies, it dies, all in favor of closing the hearing? All opposed?
Aye.
Aye,
Aye, aye, aye,
Abstain.
aye,
okay.
and one abstention. Hearing, motion dies? Motion fails?
That was the right call.
How about a motion to continue this
So moved.
to,
625, you have the public hearing for East Main Street.
okay,
I think that we can get everything that needs to be revised done on the drawings. But there's gonna be a meeting with the trust and the task force
On the
next week.
18th and 19th, but that would be a verbal recommendation that we could share with this board. I mean, if that's the additional information, I think that's pretty easy just to
Right,
deliver.
would the board accept?
But it would be late by a day, because like, we couldn't get it to you until the,
Monday,
well, I could send it.
and I can coordinate on a Friday, but would the board accept a verbal recommendation from the applicant, or would they request something to be clarified in writing from the trust or the task force?
I'm afraid I would recommend in writing from the task force, because it is their call.
I would ask-
Well, it isn't actually their call, it's a recommendation, which is why this board makes the call. I mean, that's,
Are you gonna be there, Howard?
and Howard would be there, it's not like
it
you,
takes minutes.
I mean, despite the fact that I'm an attorney,
I do, I'll
admitted, and I
probably be
can't lie
writing
to
any
you.
letters.
Howard would be there and would be able to provide. It just seems to me that this isn't a matter where you have to like look at a plan, review, digest. It's going to be a recommendation where they either tell you what is gonna be the best practical method. And to Howard's point, I can't opt, this board can't opt to allow me off-site. They have to opt to allow me a payment in lieu to be administered by the task force, which would then maybe result in off-site construction. But thinking outside the box is
Right.
kind of, I guess Harry's point is well taken, is more, I have to still then provide for the in lieu payment and do what we will under the tutelage of the task force or trust, whomever it may be.
Right.
So it is
Sorry, I read the
binary
bylaw.
to
I
the
mean-
extent of yes or no.
There's
I
very
shouldn't
little
say yes or no,
decision to
one
be
more
made
time.
here.
But
The
if,
bylaw, you'll read it yourselves. and
so I
find
would
out.
ask though that given the fact that we're not closing the hearing with regard to that information, that the board then allow us to come back on the 25th with what will be a very clear indication of go for option one or option two. There's not a lot to digest.
Fair enough.
If you were to get it, you know,
I'm good with that.
Right.
So the motion was to,
Howard, you'll get that to us Friday in an email?
Yeah.
No
Yes.
later than Monday.
if,
I can formulate and issue as an agent for the trust and an understanding of what the task force decides upon, an email to the board and bring it up
The
at the next
trust and-
meeting as well.
And task force.
And the
both of
task
them.
force, of course.
Yeah, right.
Yep, they're gonna be included.
Yeah.
interesting. All in favor of continuing to the 25th, say aye.
All right.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, one abstention.
Abstain.
Let the record show that the motion carried 4-0 with one abstention. Hearing's been continued. Thank you very much. See
Thank
in,
you very much.
You'll have all those changes? Good?
Yes.
Good?
Thank you.
Great,
Thank
thank you
you.
very much.
Thank you.
Oh, you know, Jill, I have a question. This is minor, it's
We're
business.
outside a hearing right now,
I
right?
know, but this page here, could you read that? I'm trying to review this that you submitted, previous meeting, on the testing.
you know what, you probably can't print it out. You have to look at the email.
Oh, you sent it by email?
Yeah. All it is
The glossary to
Yeah.
understand what it is.
Use
Yeah.
the little boys' room.
I can email it again.
Yeah, we'll take a 5-minute break.
I tried to print it, but the thing does not print well.
You handed it to her.
Thank you.
Oh, I did?
So send it
Oh,
by
but-
One on 95?
The brand new wall, the temporary
huge.
retaining wall they put up.
Huge.
Is that a
95.
temporary wall?
Well,
we're back,
maybe
we're
it's
back
not.
from recess.
Someone
Uh,
spray painted on.
We're back at the planning board meeting, and we are dealing, Howard, why don't you give us a breakdown on this? This is old business, 161 West Main Street.
West Main Street, correct. A while back, after a year after approval, the board requested that I follow up with a condition in the site plan approval decision. And contacted the owner, John Sosa, who's here, and then there started some correspondence back and forth between the planning office and the planning board and the owner about one of the conditions in the decision, in of particular. I think there was 3 outstanding. One was easily approached, and that was the striping or something like
Yeah,
that.
that was done from the get-go.
Right,
Some
but,
kind of signage,
and then the signage was
parking or something.
right, but coordinating with Peter Durkee on installing the signs, but then it came up that the signs need to be in the bylaw to be enforceable. So, you can still require the signs to be put up, but they can't write parking tickets because they're not enforceable for no parking. And then the last outstanding item, which is really the bulk of tonight's discussion, is the condition of universal access to the lower level. And in the planning packet was what you gave me, John.
Yes.
So you can start with the documents you provided.
So I had prepared a letter after the last meeting, after coming in. I had done some additional research, so I reached out to the help of my architect. I reached out to the Massachusetts Architectural Access Board, who is the authority that has the jurisdiction over ADA access. I explained to them my situation. They came back and suggested that I apply for a ruling, and excuse me if I may not use the right terms, because I'm a layperson, so, you know.
It's a minor modification to the approved site plan
Right, so
decision.
what the Architectural Access Board asked me to do was to submit to them in writing how I use the space. Because of how I explained to them how I use the space, they said that it would be considered a private office space, not public use, which would allow them to waive the universal access requirement. So I submitted the paperwork with the help of my architect to the Massachusetts Architectural Access Board officially. And part of that documentation was an affidavit that explained how I use the space, which is in fact, you know, it's a private office. Most of our work is done either on the construction site or in the construction trailer or at the architect's office, or which is who our clients are. So we don't have the public coming to our space. So with that, they had a board meeting. They reviewed my documentation and approved a condition, a waiver with conditions. And the conditions are that I record the restriction, and the restriction is this, which is in the packet. It says that the only person who can use that area down there is me. As soon as that changes for any reason, then universal access has to be brought down there. So as long as it remains a private office specifically for me, it's waived. And the reason they ask you to record this at the Registry of Deeds is so that this doesn't get lost in the fray. So that if building ownership changes, it doesn't get lost. As soon as that happens, it's in the deed. If someone wants to use that, for example, if the school wanted to take over the entire building, that's now public use. It requires universal access. So I had asked in my letter for a minor modification to take that, to take the requirement for the lift out, and in its place, obviously, this deed restriction is there. And the reasoning for that is many. The first is the cost of this lift, when we initially agreed to put it in, was expected to be anywhere between $8,000 and $15,000, which if it was still that, this issue would be complete. The true cost, because we have to build a shaftway around it, which was not known, and because the actual lift is much more expensive because of all these other features that need to be added to it, because it's a commercial lift, is north of $45,000. That's the first reason. The second reason is if I'm going to put that kind of money into a lift, I think it needs to be very deliberate in where we put it. For example, if the school were to take over the entire site, then it would make the most sense to put the lift inside at the time when that lower level becomes public use. And the reason for that would be so that if the children want to use the lift or need to use the lift, they don't have to go outdoors to use the lift. Because right now in the site plan approval, the lift is disassociated from the building. It's outdoors. So I want to be very deliberate about where I spend that kind of money when I have it. So that's why I'm asking for the modification to the site plan approval.
So, if you are gonna request that the modification be made to the site plan, then, I think the board right now needs to decide, is this gonna be a minor modification to the decision? Is this a major modification? Because that's gonna affect how he makes his formal application to the board. The other thing, John, is, are you definitively now, saying you want to modify the decision to take off the requirement? Or are you asking for more time because you want to be able to best locate the lift in the structure and you need more time to do that?
Right, but to know, well, for the latter, who knows when that would be? As long as I'm down there, I can't see any other business going down there because it is a rather difficult place to work. I deal with it because it's my business, right? I wouldn't expect anyone else to deal with it. If I were to leave for some reason and someone were to come in there, then universal access would be required because that business wouldn't have the access board waiver. So the reason I would ask for it to be modified is so that it's not open-ended because there is the deed restriction. It's going to have to go in if you ever want to do anything with that space down there other than how I use it. It's just so that it's closed. If I say, give me more time, who knows when that will be. The lease for the school is not up for some time, and they have about 8 years. So, and to put the lift inside within that time frame would require me to renegotiate the lease with them. And the reason I don't want to put it inside unless I know it's absolutely appropriate for the school is because their student count is based on square footage. So if I take 25 square feet away, they lose a considerable amount of capacity, and that affects their whole bottom line and how they operate. So I can't do that to them. It would affect their income, their operating income. So I think it's cleaner to do it that way, and I think it's okay to do it that way because this is registered. This deed restriction has been put on the deed. It's there. It's been barcoded, and as required by the access board, I did send them a copy of this and that as they have requested.
I only have
Can I
a
just,
deed.
can I just get a quick clarification of something? Architectural Access Board has control over the Mass state law that requires HPA access. Is that correct?
They're the authority having jurisdiction, as it was explained to me.
In the state, for the state?
No, for the whole
No, for the state, Tilly.
Massachusetts, not, when you're
For
saying
the state.
state, do you mean
For the
just state
law,
employees?
Not the federal ADA requirements, but the state laws. Just for clarification.
For any activity that, any
Under Mass
businesses?
general law.
Okay.
Under Massachusetts general law. Just for clarification. Not federal requirement.
Well, that's what he's
And-
talking, state.
Right, and it's not the local requirement of this town when you got your decision for your site plan approval. I understand what you're saying. Seems to me that the most likely scenario would be that the school that's on the first level would be the most likely tenant to use that space.
The lower level?
Mhm.
Yeah, it would seem that way, because I couldn't see anyone else going down there.
My problem with that is that under 40A, schools have an exemption and planning boards don't do any, well, as Rob knows from the Pembroke.
Planning
this
board doesn't,
board does not have.
if the schools move down there, they don't have exemption from meeting ADA requirements.
No, they have to
They
meet.
still have to meet
They would
ADA
still have to
requirements.
meet ADA
Oh,
requirements.
absolutely.
Including,
That's
even in the Massachusetts Architectural Access
Right.
Board regulations, they would have to do that.
Then they would have to
It
do
would.
this under
Absolutely.
Mass General Law.
But even if
Yeah.
the school is there, like, I remember a hearing
Can't do
down on East Main Street, the childcare that's there. The whole building is consumed with the childcare, nursery, whatever it is, yeah.
The
and-
schoolhouse, the tree house.
What is it, the tree?
They just changed names, but.
Oh, right.
One on the
The
right.
zoning board you cannot refuse them per state law, they're exempt.
Mhm.
But you can make sure that all of the dimensions outside, the safety issues.
Reasonably
Public
regulated.
health,
Yeah,
the
reasonable.
public safety, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and so,
But the only one that would see that change would be the building inspector, not
Which-
this board.
He is the enforcement
Enforcer.
officer.
Right, because
Of-
he's the
of this.
enforcement
That
officer.
would be correct.
So it would be just him, this board would not
Just,
get that.
just like Pembroke.
Right,
Yeah.
this board would not get that review, just to be clear.
the same site, you would get a site.
From the building inspector?
No, for any childcare facility, wouldn't you get
No, we don't
a
get
special
site plan.
permit? All special permits, you need a site
Well-
review, right?
No, remember, we did not review the school. The
For,
only thing
for
that we
public
did the review,
education.
the only thing that we reviewed is your business and the
Getting the,
location
yes,
downstairs.
downstairs.
And this was one of the conditions. I can tell, I don't know, can't speak for anyone else, but this was one of the conditions. You know, it's not required by state law. Because
It was
your
a
employee
condition of
counts.
this board.
It's
Put into
not
the
just-
decision.
This board.
Yeah.
That was one of the reasons that I voted for this. That's just me. Anybody else?
I have a question about, you said this is registered, and I can see the numbers for this, the affidavit, but the letter isn't.
Listen, yeah, when we went with this packet, they only did that to the first page, for whatever reason.
You sent
I had the
whole-
same question. I sent my,
Yeah.
yeah, my wife.
Sent
went
the
down
whole
and
thing, and they only stamped the outside?
They barcoded this packet, they notarized it, and then they did some other stamp on the backside, which is, I copied and included. But this entire package went to them, and this entire package was registered at the registry, and this entire package went to the Access Board in Boston as well. It's part of their conditions for this.
Does that answer your question, Tilly?
Yeah, yeah.
I'm actually okay with it,
Okay with,
not putting the elevator in.
So you would consider this a minor modification? Rob?
Yeah, without saying extra, I would absolutely agree with the minor modification.
I would go along. Is there a criteria?
It's pretty much subjective to the board. If this were to be a minor modification, then we could make a decision immediately tonight or at some other time during a business hearing. If it were to be a major modification, then the applicant would need to apply for a modification to the site plan approval.
I would
Okay,
consider.
I just want to add to that here.
Please clarify.
Modifications to approved site plans. In the event a modification is made to an approved site plan, the applicant shall submit to the planning board written description of the proposed modification, 10 copies, revised site plan. Modification site plans will, in most instances, be subject to the same review and hearing procedures as the original filing. For small and insignificant modifications, the planning board may determine that a particular modification does not warrant in addition to public hearing. Such a determination shall be made only after written request and 10 copies of the plan showing the modification have been submitted to and reviewed by the planning board. Determination modification will not require public hearing, shall be made by the planning board within 20 days of receipt of the written request and plans, and only after the planning board has found that the proposed modification is not significant and is consistent with the previously approved site plan. Copy of the determination revised plan shall be on file with the town clerk and the building inspector. So, taking from that, if the board's willing to entertain a request for a modification, then he needs to provide a revised site plan, 10 copies, written description of that, and then at the next meeting of the board where they take that up, then they can say, yes, we'll accept this as small and insignificant, or we're gonna request a full public hearing on it.
Someone give me a motion.
I can't.
Yes, you can.
Yeah, you can.
I
Of
can't?
course you can.
Oh,
Yes, this is
I'll,
closed. This
all
is
right, I'll
completely
make,
closed.
all right, I'll make a motion to accept a resubmittal of, what's it called, 161 West Main Street
Site plan.
site plan for minor modification approval,
Second.
Determination.
determination.
I'll second.
Motion's been made, seconded by Tim. Discussion? If any? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Aye. No abstentions could be left. Motion carries 4-1 with no abstentions. Sounds like you're submitting to Howard and.
I'll contact you.
Yep.
You were very thorough in your follow-up with the ADA and whatnot.
Thank you.
I never really thought, that whereas you had a private business, that was a necessary thing to put in there, but there was at least one member of the board that felt that was very important.
Yeah, and as I said, the cost was assumed to be, I had done some due diligence, but then when it ballooned in this enclosure, then that really, I really needed to be careful about, okay, if I'm gonna put that kind of dough into it, it's gotta be for good. You know, it's gotta be useful, and it has to be in a location that makes sense for whoever ends up with the building.
You know, it's kind of nice, this is just me, but, you know, there was a good faith response in the beginning where the board asked for something, and he said yes, based on an assumption that it was gonna be this, and then when it turned into this, there was, quality follow-up on how to deal with it, get this review from the board, and then a good faith response, and it just feels good.
Great. I think we have one last order of business. Howard, would you take it up, please?
Thank you.
Take care.
Good night.
As is required after annual town meeting, boards and committees and commissions are required to reorganize. And this is especially important this year because we have not filled the position of vice chair. I provided in the packet a template that I'm proposing that the board consider. I borrowed this template from the procedure that the Board of Selectmen do on their annual procedure for reorganizing. And I have,
Where is that, Howard?
it's near the back. I wrote 3 pages.
Right
One-
after new business? No.
you're-
It's under new business.
Bob, you're looking at it right there.
Yeah.
So there's a procedure that I've provided for new chair, new vice chair, and new clerk. If it's okay with the board, we'll take up the position of election of new chair of the planning board. And as noted in the form, nominations can be offered by the members of the planning board and do not need to be seconded. All nominations have been received. The town planner will call for a vote on each nomination in the order in which they are received. Once the election of the chair has been determined, the new chair will resume responsibility of running the meeting and election of any other officers as may be appropriate. So, I will hear from any planning board member, a nomination for the chair of the planning board.
I'll nominate Rob Hoover for chairman.
I'll nominate Harry.
Any other planning board member wanting to make a nomination for the chair of the planning board? No, hearing none, then I'll take a vote for Tim's nomination for Rob Hoover as the chair. Harry? How do you vote?
Nay.
Tilly?
Yes.
Bob?
Nay.
Tim?
Yes.
And Rob?
Yes.
So I have a nomination of, from Bob for the nomination of Harry for the chair. Harry?
The vote was just done.
Yes, but I need to take a
Oh,
vote
okay.
for each nomination.
Right.
There-
Yeah, in answer to your question, yes.
Okay. Tilly?
No.
Bob?
Yes.
Tim?
Nay.
Rob?
No.
Okay, for the nomination of Rob to the chair, I have a vote of 3 yes, 2 nay. And for the nomination of Harry to the chair, I have a vote of 2 yes and 3 no. So I consider this that the chair has now been, the nomination of Bob Watts to the chair is approved.
Rob Hoover.
Rob Hoover, sorry.
That's not funny.
Wait till I make you vice chair.
He wants to be vice chair.
Take it over, Rob.
He's got
Do vice chair?
He's got the rest.
Yeah,
Oh,
I'll,
I thought it said you were gonna take it over.
no, the town planner will coordinate and lead the taking of nominations for the election of vice chair.
Oh, that's not the
Nominations
first
can
one.
be offered by the members of the planning board, do not need to be seconded. Once all nominations have been received, the town planner will call for a vote on each nomination in the order in which they were received. Does a planning board member wish to make a nomination for vice chair?
I'll nominate Harry.
And I'll second that. No, you don't need
No
a second.
required.
Oh, I'm so used to doing it, I'm just programmed.
Any other planning board member wanting to make a nomination for vice chair of the planning board? Hearing none, I'll take a vote on the nomination by Tim for Harry on vice chair. Harry?
I'll abstain.
You're stuck with it.
Tilly?
Yes.
We're not letting you off.
Bob Watts?
Yes.
Tim Howard?
Yes.
And Rob Hoover?
Yes.
My God, it's 2007 all over again.
Why, was that?
Do I get the hair back? That's what I want to know.
I might ask the same question.
So congratulations, Harry, on the planning board accepting your nomination to vice chair. Town planner will coordinate and lead the taking of nominations for the election of clerk. Nominations can be offered by the members of the planning board and do not need to be seconded. Once all nominations have been received, the town planner will call for a vote on each nomination in the order in which they are received. Do I hear from a planning board member on a nomination for the seat of clerk?
Bob Watts.
Nominate Bob Watts.
So,
I
who
don't
made the
know.
nomination first?
I did.
I'd seconded it. You drafted. Just
Any other planning board
drink the
member
Kool-Aid.
wanting to
Just
make
drink the
a,
Kool-Aid.
Really? Really?
any other
You
planning,
guys are in trouble
Welcome
now.
to the party,
You guys, yeah, welcome to the party, all right.
any other planning board member wanting to make a nomination for the chair of court?
You, I don't care. Fire me.
Hearing none, I'll take a vote for the nomination made by Tim for Bob Watts for the chair of Cork. Harry,
Yes.
Tilly,
With
Definitely.
pleasure.
Bob,
Unspeakable.
We don't care about
is that
it.
abstaining?
abstain.
I can vote against my.
You could say
Yes,
so.
you can.
You know?
I say no.
Tim
Yay.
and Rob.
Yes.
Congratulations to
Judas, Thank you
Bob Watts on nomination to the position
Congratulations.
of Cork.
Congratulations.
Mr.
And-
Chairman,
I just want to bring the
Political.
one more matter to the attention of the board. At the next meeting, we need to review all the appointments that this board makes to other boards and committees in town of their board members, because that's also part of the reorganization.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I have a question. Is there a document that says what the office of clerk is responsible for?
Everything.
Shut up.
You study under the,
I'm asking.
you
that-
study under the tutelage of the master.
I've lost.
Just sign
an apprenticeship
things. You-
program.
You just sign.
Just
things
get
that
over
you
to her house and start waxing the car. Wax.
Start with the wheels.
Don't, you know what?
You're gonna get whacked.
Don't.
What's the secret to your success, Rob? Because within a short time, you're in the point of clerk.
Motion to adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
So moved.
Which no one can tell what the responsibilities are. It's awesome.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting adjourned. Hey, I just want to say something. This whole chair discussion, Harry and I have been talking about this together, and I have a great deal of respect for Harry and my communications
I do
with him.
too.
And I just wanted to say that in front of with everybody.
Doesn't matter who the chair is.
So
It's
thank
the
you.
board.
So thank you.
This board is gonna do great things this summer.
I think we're gonna do. a
I
lot
know
of
we
good-
are.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
We are. Doesn't matter who sits where.